Legends, welcome to The Willie Show. Thank you for spending some time with myself and my guest today. As this is a free show, if you want to personally support the show, follow the link in the description, or to freely support it, if you watch the episodes on YouTube, YouTube will split some of the advertising profit with me, helping me out, grow the show, make it better equipment, get more places with it. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Have a great day.
Sorry, a video camera is anything that films... Yeah, new studio working out.
New studio, mate. We'll throw it around.
No, a video camera is anything that films over half an hour continuous.
Yep.
And they get taxed at a different rate. So then they're like, any like DSLR, so Canon and Sony and Nikon, whatever, to make them cheaper, we're like, fine. They film for 29 minutes and 59 seconds.
Yeah, wow. I just learned something.
All of them, yeah.
And to think, I studied a diploma in photography, and I never knew that.
How classic. So a massive pain in the ass. So when it reaches half an hour down here, I'm going to get up, quick stop, and then start. And fucking beat Mr. Sony.
Mr. Sony in his own game.
It's probably like just a law in Japan, and because everything's made there, I mean, like, whatever.
Yeah, fair call. Mate, I'm loving what you've done with this new studio. It's turned out quite well.
You're the first one on.
Oh, I know. I'm a bit honoured, actually.
Yeah.
A little bit honoured. It's a bit... it looks good, and I love the goose touch.
Oh, I thought you were going to take the piss out of me for it.
No, I'm not, but, you know, I must admit, I reckon if you'd grabbed that blue pen many years ago, you probably would have had a bit better career.
Don't bring it up. I often think, because I was like, fuck. Because I remember when I first was, like, recruiting, it was like, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and I had, like, the scores at school to do it. Like, that's what I was studying for. And then it was like, nah, minimum is, like, 11 years or some shit, like, minimum...
Rosso.
Yeah. And I was like, fuck that's forever. Like, no way, I'm not going to be in anywhere near that long. And then I remember like 4 years in, pack marching around, this F-18 did a massive tail slide over us. And I'm like, even if the training was 3 or 4 years, which it probably is.
You probably would have been there.
I would have been in that seat.
Probably would have been there.
And so, I was like, yeah, rest in peace, Goose.
Rest in peace,
War
Goose.
hero on the wall.
That's it. Mate, that movie actually got me into the defence.
Really?
Yeah, I remember I was about 6 or 7. Parents went to a sort of like a home theatre expo sort of show, home show.
Yeah.
And we were wandering around and like, you know, projector was the rage back in those days sort of thing, and standing there holding mum's hand, and all you could hear was this F-14 buzzing the tower. It was just loud on the stereo, and I was looking at it and I was like, oh, I was hooked on it. Yeah. So I sort of sat there, and parents left me there because, you know, back in those days as kids, you stood still. The parents just went, yep, sweet, stay there. So I sat there watching Top Gun as a 7-year-old, and I'm like, yes, that's kind of what I want to do.
Right.
So that's literally what got me into defence.
It's the best movie ever too. It's the most quotable movie, because like that post I put up about that, I was like, what should I do? And then I just like Googled like best Top Gun quotes, and it was just like 1,000 best. I'm like,
yeah, it comes up a lot. And being Air Force, you kind of watch it a fair bit as well, so you start to learn you know, lines, and can kind of repeat it at one point, but that's nothing we'll bring up on this, that's for sure.
No, I love it, man. So, Ewan, again, thank you for coming on.
Mate, thank you for having me.
Amazing. It was I don't even know how we got in touch through social.
Mate, it's gone from Instagram to me laughing at you breaking down in Sierra.
Don't do that.
Many times over, to offering to come and help you out, to fixing it, drenching myself in fuel because, you know, I missed those days of working on cars and stuff like that when I grew up, to random shit talking, and now here I am. Yeah. New studio.
On the first installment in the new studio.
Packing bricks at the moment. Nah, it's all good.
No, I reckon it's good. I reckon it's more relaxed than my old one.
Yeah, it's actually got a good little vibe to it. The leather couch is a nice touch.
And I feel like the camera being far away isn't like in your face.
No, it's not. You don't even know it's there.
Yeah, like when I was in my office, it was like fucking across the table, like, what up, bro? like it was a bit much, but I've been setting up this room, and then we'll see. I don't know. We'll see who else sits in the big chair.
Mate, I'm sure you'll get many volunteers. That's for sure. As you continue on in your career post ADF.
Yeah, that'll become a lot easier. So, what do you want to talk about? Where do you want to go?
Mate, where do I want to go? I guess,
let's start at the beginning. Chronological is the easiest one.
Chronological, right. 16th of February 2004, I signed on the dotted line from Darwin to join the Air Force. Quite ironically, actually, because I went into DFR in 2002 when I was finishing up in school, and same sort of aspirations, wanted to fly and do that sort of stuff, but knowing full well I didn't have the grades because as a teenager, as an early child, actually, my parents divorced, so I stayed with the old boy. So Dad's punishments were firm but fair, thrown on the labouring sites and stuff like that. So I grew up sort of, labouring, plumbing, building, that sort of stuff, but always knew that defence was where I was going to go. So still pursued that. Didn't exactly apply myself through year 11 and 12, much to probably my mother's disgust. But still, I got in there, and the guy was like, it was pretty funny. He was a Navy birdie. I'll never forget it, because he goes, mate, you don't have the grades to fly, but have you ever thought about fixing him? And I just looked at him and was like, tell me more. So he sat there and he's like, well, in the Navy, you get to chill out on the back of the ships in, the pools, and you sort of see those movies and they just chill out and do not much while everyone else works their ass off and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. I could do that. But I didn't really want to join the Navy. Sailing around in the oceans and stuff, as much as I love fishing and all that sort of thing, just wasn't really what I was after. So yeah, Air Force was always where I wanted to go. It took me just over a year to actually get in. They told me I was going to have a year wait, and I was quite happy with that. Inside that time, I got offered Navy and Army probably about 3 times each, and I just kept turning it down. I had mates that went to the Army, ended up in Special Operations Regiment engineers and stuff like that, med discharge, things like that, and whatever else. But credit to what they did in that. But yeah, it was never really for me. And I learned at an early age, and someone told me this, and this actually came in very handy later on in my career when I went to DFR, that it was a saying. So if anyone ever came up to me and asked, which service would you think would suit me, I'd actually look at them and be like, well, I don't know you from a bar of soap, but here, if this resonates with you, then you'll understand. And the saying goes, the Army live by the stars, the Navy navigate by the stars, and the RAF choose their accommodation by the stars. Yeah. And we know this very well. And, I've stayed in some pretty nice hotels around the world.
Don't tell me that. But I've got a nice hoochie in the outback.
What's that? I think I used one of them once. And I reckon I was in the middle of Yass, and it was on adventure training, and I was freezing my ass off sleeping in the ruts made by a logging truck with a hoochie over the top to try and stay warm.
Been there.
So that was kind of...
Slept in plenty of tank ruts.
Yeah, see, that was kind of the closest I ever got to really being green. But so joined the Air Force, flew off from Darwin. I got down to Adelaide because that was where our ATs were back then. Recruit training, and smacked out recruit training. Sort of stayed there a little bit longer after a few little incidents occurred, but it was all good in the end of it. Got to Wagga, and Defence actually do their trades a little bit different. So yes, it's kind of like an apprenticeship. However, you get all your TAFE stuff out of the way first, and then you go to your squadrons or units and work through your journals, and you complete them to your time frame to actually get your certificate. So you still get your Cert 4. You just do it a little bit differently to what a mechanic or a electrician or something like that would do on the outside world.
Yeah.
So a year at Wagga, fun place that is.
Yeah.
There's actually had some pretty good memories from there. Had my 21st there, so that was always fun. But yeah, so Wagga was good, and then I got, when our postings came out, or the options come out, and you get to nominate where you'd like to go.
Yeah.
I sat there and was like, someone once told me, always go transport because you get to travel the world. And when the opportunities come up, there was 6 Air Force on my course. So there was 2 to Amberley, 2 to Williamtown, so fast jets for those boys, 1 to Adelaide, so working on P3s, and 1 to Richmond, so Hercs. So a couple of the young boys, they always wanted fast jets. The ducks of the course wanted Adelaide. That's all he really wanted. He just wanted to go home. So he got that. No one was really going to take it off him, because back in those days, Edinburgh was a bit, it wasn't really sort of the place to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, looks like I'll get Hercs. As you do, you shit stir the boys and say, you go for fast jets as well. And then they're all panicking and whatever else. But when postings come out, everyone got what they wanted. So everyone was happy, and away you went. So I got to Richmond in October 05. And it was an eye-opening to, I guess, the real Air Force and the real world and how it went.
Yeah. I don't know anything about the real Air Force.
The real Air Force. It's kind of just like you get out to your unit, and you're doing your job. You're sort of, under training, you're learning, you're learning the aircraft. So I'm an avionics technician. That's my background. So think auto electric, but for aircraft.
Yeah.
You're learning your systems. You're learning, how the aircraft operates, flies, all that sort of stuff. And you're hands-on, in the thick of it, fixing them. Working shift work, and once you start to build up some competencies and qualifications, you start traveling with that aircraft. So most transport aircraft will take technicians when they fly.
Yeah.
So you really start to travel, and you really start to get out and about and experience what's on offer.
Jesus.
So I think, well, it was four rotations and one catalyst in that time, so a tail swap of aircraft. But I was at Richmond from 05 to the end of 13. So in that time, multiple deployments overseas to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Which, you're kind of excited to actually do because, I guess, as you know quite well, when you sign on that dotted line, that's the sort of the culmination and the be all and end all. It's like, it's what you're trained to do. It's what you're there for. It's what you want to do. So, when it comes around, I think my first rotation, I got tapped on the shoulder by the warrant officer and pulled into his office, and he was like, "Oh, what are you up to next week?" I think it was about a Wednesday. And I'm like, not a lot. He's like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I'm like, "Not a lot," like thinking, where is this going? Am I going to get shafted for something or whatever? And he turns around and he goes, "Oh, I suggest you got a partner?" I said, "Yeah, got a, what was that, 06. So you got a girlfriend. I wasn't married at that time, but got a girlfriend." So he's like, "I suggest you take her somewhere nice." I was like, "Why is that, sir?" He's like, "You're off to the Middle East next Thursday. You got a problem with that?" I was like, not at all, So got home, told her, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, cool, no worries." And we went off, and I think we went out to the Blue Mountains, live in Hawkesbury, not far from it. And so that was literally my first tap on the shoulder for a rotation. And I was lucky at the time because it was a bit of a split one. Went to 2 different locations over time, just because it was the third sort of aircraft they popped into country. And I was lucky enough to stay on with it. So instead of doing 6 weeks and coming home with half the guys, I did 6 weeks in one spot and then followed the aircraft in and stayed with them and joined the rest of the guys that were there. So I got a bit of both worlds, bit of a holiday camp and then a bit of the sort of real life action in country, and sort of experienced that, which was fun. And then, you come home, and from then you could sort of piece together when you'd go back again because of the tempo. So you sort of head back over. And I volunteered for the Christmas ones because I had a crazy family, and the left hand never spoke to the right hand occasionally and stuff like that. And sometimes it was a bit awkward. So it was easy just to not be around for big moments and big events and things like that. And it suited the partner quite well. So, I'd volunteer for the Christmas. Plus, it's better weather. It's winter over there. It's not summer. So you get to see the snow, and you get, get the cooler temperatures. You still hit 30s during the day, but at night, you're down to 0 or below. So it's not like you're sweating out in the sun in the middle of summer. So I did 2 winter ones and 2 summers. So I've had both, and I always preferred winter. Yeah. Winter was brilliant. But so they were eye-opening.
In what way?
I guess, fortunate or unfortunate, depends how you look at it. They were, it was the culmination of your training and your job. You always went with a good bunch of blokes. You were there, but being transport, you were flying guys in and out, flying suppliers in and out. And then, I think when you had, 2 of the busiest periods in terms of loss of life for the ADF, and I was there for both of them, that was quite sombering and difficult in the fact that, you'd wake up and you had ramp ceremony after ramp ceremony for a period of time, and it wasn't just Australians, it was, Canadians and Kiwis as well and things like that. So it was, it sort of brought, your Air Force, you're out of harm's way in that sense, but it brought it all together, and it sort of brought everything back to, this is why I'm here, this is what you're doing, this is why, you're busting your butt to get aircraft ready to do, the long hours and the things like that you actually did. So it was, it was always interesting because I love flying in country with the guys, because you were taking, commandos in or Saskats in or stuff like that, and they'd talk to you and whatnot, give you shit because you're just a techo on the plane or whatever else. But then they'd also come up to you and be like, thanks when you're busting your ass trying to get a, fix to get to wherever they got to get to next or whatnot. And it was always fun because, if you broke, somewhere like Kandahar or somewhere like that, you had to go pinch, steal or borrow parts from the Yanks or the Japanese or whatever. So the language barriers and the breakdowns and things like that was always fun to navigate. And, the things you could do being Aussie, you'd almost get anything that you wanted. But it was always good because, it was just fun. It was the job. It was, I guess, the freedom of, being the 2 techos on the plane with the crew and just doing what you needed, you know. You always used to sit back and laugh because you'd go into like your briefings before you fly and things like that, and you'd go through all the ISR stuff and all the things that you need to know, and whatnot, and you'd sit there and you'd be like, man, I'm just a techo. If anything ever happened, I'm just going to stay with the plane because that's where they're going to come and look, obviously, you know. And I think I'm just going to pile up all the ammunition and all the rest of that. And that was always the things you sort of used to think about because it was like, you know, I'm not humping 40 Ks. That's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was always funny, those sorts of things. But yeah, when you're actually sort of flying and doing the job, you know, and sitting there and, you know, I think one Christmas, it was probably mid-December, and due to the weather, this is going way back before the runway in TK became concrete. It was closed, you know, because it was raining, flooded, you know, and MTF had to get home and delayed due to that. So we were sort of on task, and the call came through that the civilian guys had landed there in the little L100s. So we were like, all right, well, we're in next, pulling them out. And sort of things like that, you know, you're dragging 90 guys chocked in the back, all sitting there like grunts, and you'd know what it's like flying in the back of a Herc when you're fully loaded with guys squashed in next to you and whatnot. Yeah, everyone's trying to climb over each other to get to the back of the plane to go for a piss or whatnot, or you just sit there for, you know, 6-7 hours and don't move. But when you're doing things like that, you know, it sort of brought it back to like, you know, it was good because it was like, you're just part of the process, you're part of the next, you know, evolution for everybody else to move around or whatnot, or you're, you know, achieving the mission, so to speak. So it was always good. But yeah, the repat side of it and stuff like that was sombering. I did Thomas Kirby and Grantdale in August. Yeah, August. So that was a very interesting experience. You know, that sort of, I guess you saw both sides of the combat, you know, like you saw the guys on the ground and the guys that were in the trenches or, you know, out in the field with those boys. And then you saw like the head sheds and that at the other side of it as well. So yeah, that was a bit of an eye opener for me, that flight, and sort of put a few other things into perspective that I kind of won't go into, but you would understand in terms of like the rank and the differentiation between, you know, where it sort of sits or how the pendulum falls, I guess. So yeah, that was you know, honoured to do it, but at the same token, it was a bit of an eye opener as well in some other ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, Herc World was fun. You know, I guess the thrill of it and what made it great. So was, you know, apart from the operations and apart from the trips and apart from, you know, some of the great guys that you worked with, you just never knew what you were going to do the next day. You know, so from, you know, you could be at work Friday afternoon. I think I remember one Friday I was driving home. I just got into the driveway and I got a phone call and I've answered it and it was like unknown number. So you knew straight away it was someone from work. So I've answered it and it's like, what are you up to? Nothing. What are you doing this Arvo? Nothing. Do you want to come back to work and go on a trip? Sure. Where am I going?
Yeah.
Don't know yet. Okay. How long for? Probably a week. Sure. Grab your passport. All right, cool. You know, no, that was somehow some of the conversations went. You know, and head back in, jump on a plane, and off you go.
It's fucking crazy. It's hard to get your head around as a grunt that, because I know when we deploy, and we deploy in, I guess, a different operational sense, like for a mission that's like ever changing, the lead up is never like that. It's like, I reckon we did 3 or 4 months of like rehearsal training before even thinking about stepping foot on the ground.
Yeah, and your force prep, you know, like your force prep's 4 or 5 weeks, you know, of lectures and training and stuff like that. Whereas for us, it was 4 or 5 days, you know, sitting in a classroom, doing all the briefings and whatnot, and then bang, off you went again. So, you know, when the guys actually had to go tag along and do an army one, if you missed out or it was whatever else, you're a little bit in shock because, you know, 5 weeks, crap. You know, it was 4 days like a week ago. Now it's this. So, yeah, it's very different in that sense. And I guess, yeah, that's where you sit back as a Raffy and sort of sit there and go, thank God I grabbed the blue pen, not the green one.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the first person. I remember we were standing actually in the shed after fixing some fuel on my car. On that fucking shitbox Suzuki. Great car.
It's a good little car.
I defend it the whole time. But Yeah, you were talking about, like backloading the coffins on the ramp ceremonies. And I, being a grunt, I guess never thought about that side of it and how that affects people. I guess we think about more, people dying in combat and then it ends there and whatever. But I'd never even considered the effect that would have on the wider community of people dealing with that as well. And I remember you said to me, I'll never forget, what made me upset more wasn't that there was a dead Australian young lad in the coffin. It was seeing his mates go back with him and them just crushed. That you knew that young lad with that guy's dead, but that guy will never be the same because his best mate just got shot.
Yeah, and that was it. It was the escorts. It was, like you'd sort of sit there and you were like, do I offer him a bottle of water, or do I, you didn't want to encroach on it, but you just, you're still human at the end of the day. So you wanted to make sure that they were okay as well. But you're dead right. Watching those escorts, guys that were probably standing right next to them, then escort the body home. It was just, that was pretty crushing, because it was like, shit, after what you've just been through to now have to do this, to go, and you're not just going to end the country, you're going all the way home, it was, and it's a couple of days, like it's not, overnight. It was real sort of, it dragged a few things back home, and it sort of just made you realise that, look, yes, there's guys that do it tougher, but still, the effect that it has on people and other things like that, it just sort of hammers it in as well. Because, you had a good idea of if something was going on or the shit was hitting the fan, even if you were just working on the flight line, because there'd be like a lockdown of comms, and then it would last for, however long it lasted for. And you'd sort of understand, you had a good idea that, something was happening, but you'd find out eventually. And then, it was like, all right, cool. And then you get all the emails, or you get all the notifications, and for the ramp ceremony. So you'd go out there, do the ceremony, pay your respects and that sort of stuff. And then you'd be back out there again the next morning for the same thing to send it on, send them on their way back to Australia and whatnot. And after a while, in those two periods, after a while, you got sort of desensitized to it a little bit. Not because you were doing it so frequently, or because, it was just a funeral or something like that. It was just the repetitive nature of it. And I guess same thing with you guys, I guess, in combat, if you've got rounds flying over your head constantly, after a while, you sort of get desensitized to it, because it's in that environment. It's the same sort of thing constantly. And I guess another one to say is you sort of, when you went into country and you'd be on the air bases, and the rocket alarms or the rocket, the C-SPAN radar would go off, and bang, hit the deck, all the rest of that. After a while, it sort of got the same effect, it was like, just another one, yep, sweet, no worries. Oh shit, this one actually kind of got close and hit. All right, okay, maybe that one's a little bit, we'll write home about it or whatnot, or we'll just bury that one for later. But after a while, when you do something repetitively, you get desensitized to things like that. But I think seeing it from that point of view and being, 6 foot from it, you're like, okay, this actually brings it back into perspective in a big way.
And how was it coming home from seeing that? I guess it's something that the populace is just not aware of happening.
I think it affects everyone differently. So for me, coming home from most of those rotations, the first one was eye-opener, so it was quite fun, so it was quite different. The next couple, where things happened and things like that, it was a little bit, everyone talks about, I guess, that hypersensitivity and it affects everyone differently. So, where a loud noise for me might have been okay, loud noise for yourself, you might have been a bit jumpy or a bit alert or whatever or whatnot. But, coming home and sort of, I guess trying to unwind or trying to fit back into normality, because your shift and your sleep patterns are all over the shop. You do get into a bit of a, pattern, in 100 and so days or whatever, but adjusting to like normal life again, and you got a fair bit of time off, but, your mates would always want to know what's going on or how it was, or, what cool things did you do or whatnot. And I guess that was the beauty of, being Air Force was, when you did have some downtime, you could go into town in sort of places and check it out and things like that, and do the touristy stuff or whatever else. But then, know that you're still there for a job or whatnot. So you got that bit of freedom, I guess. But that was only sort of, one day off in every 12 or 13, depending on what your shift was. So you got a little bit of that. But yeah, coming home, you sort of had to sort of quickly unwind and quickly jump back into things. And I learned that I compartmentalize way too well. So for me, I could bury stuff and not worry about it and just go on like life was normal or whatever. Not realizing that probably wasn't the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And definitely, over the last sort of 5 years, a lot of things have bit me on the arse due to personal choices or, relationship breakdowns or other things, career-wise, that I've sort of learnt that...
Reshuffling.
Yeah, I've sort of learnt
Ninja
that,
shit.
probably talking about things would have been the better option. But I think everyone sort of, adjusts differently or reshapes themselves differently or whatnot. And for me, it was just, jump back in. I was playing soccer. I was playing cricket. I was playing cricket with the guys from work, soccer with a bunch of local boys at Colo in the Hawkesbury. And, those guys are a bunch of legends, young kids through to older guys. And it was just a way to unwind and, forget about things really. And that's kind of what you did. You sort of, it's definitely what I did. I forgot about a lot of stuff, but still held some things dear, So Anzac days after those repats were very different. They were a lot more somber. They were a lot more quieter. I don't think I marched for a couple of years, actually, to be honest. I sort of just took the time out and just had some quiet reflection and things like that. So important days like that where normally you'd be with the boys or whatever else, for me, I sort of got reserved a little bit and just, I wouldn't say crept into a shell, but just pulled back and, reflected inwardly and then sort of dwelled on it for a little bit, and then it would just be all right, back in that box, time to crack on again after a period of time. And it was the same with like, those weeks in August and things like that, those weeks would come along and you're like, I think after I got to DFR, that's when they sort of started coming out a little bit more predominantly just because of what life had brought on and the changes in that sort of stuff. So, after my hurt career, I got posted to DFI in Brisbane, which was quite good because I was being told I was coming to Edinburgh. And again, back then, Edinburgh was not somewhere where you really wanted to go because Orions were still an operational squadron. So going from one operational unit to another, you just knew that there was that burnout or, there was that possibility of never being home again and whatnot. And after doing it for so long, you just wanted that break.
Yeah.
So it was like, send me to a fighter squadron or send me somewhere like that. The guys that only work Monday to Friday and have weekends off because if it rains, they're not flying.
Yeah.
Whereas us, if it rains, you're still standing out on the flight line, launching a plane or whatever, So I was being posted to Edinburgh and I sort of kicked up a little bit of a stink about it. And the man had told us that, you got two options, become an MSI, so go to Wagga and become a recruit instructor or apply for DFR. So I was like, I'm not going to Wagga.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Wagga.
I didn't like it the first time.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Well, I didn't mind it, but I'm not going to Wagga to live there, by choice. And then it was, all right, DFR, Adelaide, Darwin, Brisbane, Newcastle. And at the time, I was married and whatnot. And it was like, all right, cool. Asked the wife and she'd prefer to go to Darwin because, I grew up there, she grew up there. My teenage years were spent there. Her family was there and whatnot. So it was like, all right, well, let's just try go there. So, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by a couple of guys that had just come out of recruiting.
Yeah.
So I sort of got the lowdown and a bit of, behind the scenes knowledge into sort of the process for applying for that. So I applied for it and one of the other boys that was on the rotation with me applied for it as well. We were both in the Middle East when we applied. So we managed to skip the day introduction session that you'd normally go into a centre. And
skiving from the beginning.
Yeah, we were skiving from the beginning.
You keep going, I'm going to flick this on and off again.
Nah, you're right, mate. So, yeah.
Sony, sort your life out.
Technology, mate. It's all good.
Mate, don't bring it up.
You could have gone far. So, I was lucky enough to apply from the Middle East. So I And that, actually, in itself, that's quite funny because not many people would know. You'd know that when you ring out from over there, you had a 5-second delay between hearing the person and them hearing you speak. So
Heaps annoying.
It was very annoying because, you'd ring home and you'd be like, "Hey, Mum, how are you?" This awkward silence, and then you get a response. And it was like, shit, are they there talking to me? Or, after a while, you got used to it. But yeah, when you're doing a interview and you've got 3 voices on a conference call coming back at you, it's very hard to pick the difference in the voices when there's that 5-second pause between them. But I was lucky enough to do that. And I got Darwin and Maso got Brizzy. Maso got Brizzy. And then push come to shove, I ended up swapping for personal reasons between Darwin and Brisbane. I was kind of lucky that good mate got the other posting, so we sort of could do that. So that worked out well. But I got to DFR, and those first couple of months, I was lost. You just come from being a techo on Hercs, always shift work, traveling around, out and about, always on the go, to now I was sitting behind a desk Monday to Friday, loose 9 to 5 sort of hours. It's a huge shock to the system.
Yeah.
Massive shock to the system. So for the first 6 months, I was, just like I was doing it because it was, it was fine. It was what I wanted to do. And I wasn't in Edinburgh or stuff like that, but it was just that shit. This is different.
Yeah.
I've got to adjust to this. And it took a good 6 months to adjust to it. Once I adjusted, best job I've done.
Yeah.
And I'd highly recommend it to those that are in, if they're looking to not extend time in location, but if they're looking to stay a bit longer where they can, or, planning ahead, knowing that, you might be posting out, but DFR or something like that's an option. Or if you're looking to just have that change that is different from the normal, it's definitely a posting to go into because it gives you an understanding of the opposite side of defence and how it works. So I think you'd get this, you'd look at the people that come into the units and you'd just sit there and be like, mate, how did you get in?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, when you go to DFR and you sit there and you see what we turn away, you sort of sit there and think, okay, I have a new understanding and a new appreciation for that dude now. And it's like, you almost want to send an email and be like, oh, sorry for some of that shit I might have given you a few years ago. But it's eye-opening because, you're working with a civilian recruitment company and they do a lot of the heavy lifting. You're sort of the face. But inside that, so to give you sort of a rundown on some of the things you do, or I did, was you do all your interview training and things like that, and then you're running, your U session, which is what used to be the Joe's days and things like that. So, Brizzy's the busiest centre in Australia in terms of people numbers that they turn over per year. Southeast Queensland region just seems to be the region where, highest numbers, highest turnover for defence. So, you'd get them in, 30 to 40 people, do the presentation. So run them through the presentation, grab all their paperwork and stuff like that, send them off to their aptitude assessment, and then you pick them up after that, and then you just sort of manage between the interview and the medical process for those guys, and just sort of track where people are and whatnot, and just answer questions or whatnot. And if you weren't that person running that session, the rest of you guys are out the back interviewing. So you're taking the guys in, and you're talking kids, year 10, year 11, through to guys that are 55 or women that are late 40s that ever wanting a career change or looking at different options or whatnot. So you're always seeing a variety of people, all walks of life, all sorts of education, all sorts of backgrounds, and that's what made that job interesting.
Yeah.
Knowing that you'd get in there, plus it was in the city, in the CBD, so you'd get in there. I used to ride a motorbike, so I think it was costing me like $17 every 3 weeks in petrol. Free parking.
Yeah, can't relate to that.
Nah, get in there nice and early. Oh, mate, I've had cars over the years. That's another conversation. But get in there nice and early. Go to the gym or go for a run around the Botanical Garden in Brizzy, Cafe Brekkie or something like that if you really wanted to. And then start the day off in uniform behind the desk. grab your dossiers. So we'd prep. So you had a bit of a background on the person because, otherwise you're flying blind, and then you go in and, do the interview. And it was always good because, if they were really keen and really wanted to, they would have a fair idea of what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then again, if they just stared at you blankly when you're like, so what are you interested in doing? That was always just as good too, because you grab the aptitude test and then you would let them know what jobs they can do and sort of go, all right, Willie, so, your background says you like cars or electronics or something like that. Have you thought about this, or you sit there and say, so what sort of things interest you? It might be like, I love camping, fishing, hunting, that sort of stuff. And you'd be like, all right, sweet. So army, I've always thought of that. All right, cool. So these sorts of roles. So
then you get the old, the infantry's just like camping. It's just like
mate, I never sold jobs to people in that sense, I guess, because you always used to sit there and you hear the stories. Recruiting told me if I did this and I did that, and it was like, And look, it might have happened many years ago and stuff like that, but these days it doesn't happen so much, because I guess it's more targeted for position for people and whatnot and stuff like that. So I never tried to undersell or oversell, and even if you got a kid come in. Some of the funniest ones were like, they're like 17 or 18 and they look like they were 40 kilos wringing wet, but they just wanted to be infantry. And it's like, mate, you're going to carry a pack that's heavier than you right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Or, the old, what's a commando role? Oh, do you want me to demonstrate? And it's like, nah, buddy, just stay in the seat, just talk.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, you get some crack ups, hey?
If you want demonstrate.
Yeah, you can get some crack ups.
I'm stuck on that. That'd be amazing. I'd be like,
dude.
Yes.
Dude, it was an eye-opener. It really was good. And then you get, people that just walked in off the street one day and were just like, thinking I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And so my first year was spent interviewing. So I was, you were just day in, day out interviewing, one in every 13 or 14, you'd run the session or whatnot, work the odd weekend and stuff like that. And it was quite fun. It was good. And then my second year at DFR, so Brisbane split their sort of roles because they've got so many schools in their region and stuff like that. So my second year was the careers promotion side. So that was getting out and about to schools, expos and events and, giving presentation on, jobs, roles, trades, or even, ADFA or the other side or the undergraduate study scheme or things like that. So that was fun because you were, bit more in the community eye, a bit more in the public, so CAMS or service dress, and we used to have a denomination line of where you'd go as to what you would wear. And then, just present, chat with kids or chat with people at expos or stuff like that. So, bunk in, bunk out, set up, and then, brochures, the USB sticks, the pens, the water bottles, all that sort of stuff. And it was good. So that year being Air Force and being corporal, got the Aviation Expo was sort of my baby to organise. And the Brizzy one is, Avalon's the massive one for Australia, and for the world really. Like it's one of the biggest aviation events. There's a careers one in Brisbane as well that's sort of run, and so we tagged along to that and set up stalls and whatnot. And we had MRH-90, you had a Herc, you had planes come in and things like that. So you had all sorts of stuff there. So, liaising crews, air crews and things like that for that, feeding them and all that. So you had the civilian staff helping out, organising food and organising the event from their side of things, and we're doing it from the military side and whatnot. And then, it all culminates over a couple of days where you're just sitting there, constantly either presenting or getting people to present, so pilots and things like that, and just giving them a rundown on the DFR side of things. And then you're standing there, up in front of, I think probably one of the daunting things I had to do was go to one of the prestigious schools in Brisbane. I can't remember which one it is now, but we had over 700 people and like 700 students in the hall, and you're on a microphone up the front. I think it was my second presentation. It was like, oh man, like shit.
Yeah.
I'm out of my depth here a little bit, but you sort of, you wing it, and after a while you knew the presentation off by heart. And working for a year interviewing, you got to learn all the different roles across the three services. So, how long people were off for training, recruits or IETs for each different role, sort of an appreciation for what those jobs did, where they would end up afterwards, units, locations, bases. So you become well versed in it that you could literally be thrown in that deep end and swim quite happily and answer most questions. You know, occasionally you'd palm off to your offsider because we always travelled in pairs. You'd palm off to your offsider, and if you weren't sure, or, you know, it'd be like if I was doing a presentation with you and someone asked what's infantry like, I'd be like, well, Matty can answer this one, and, you know, we'll let you go. Because you were talking about your job or whatnot, or your experiences. So yeah, it's always good because you get, you know, I mean, if you're wanting to join defence or if you're wanting advice, you know, I would suggest jumping on, you know, defencejobs.gov.au, having a bit of a read about some of the jobs, seeing if, you know, you're interested in any of those careers or whatnot. 131901 or apply online, go in, do your U session, do your aptitude testing. You know, in your U session, let them know what you're interested in. You know, if you achieve that on your aptitude test, all good. You know, jump through the hoops, go through that. When it comes to your defence interview, have a good appreciation of the role, an understanding of what you're going to do, how long your recruit training, your IETs are, those sorts of things, and, you know, just present yourself well like you would for any other job interview. You know, so suit and tie. If you don't own a suit and tie, don't go buy one, but, you know, wear your best, put your best foot forward like you would for any other job. Because believe it or not, most of the stuff that they're going to ask you about is actually on that website.
Yeah.
So if you can, you know, not rope learn, but if you can have a good appreciation of that Defence Jobs website and the career path you want to go down, you shouldn't have any issues in not, you know, passing that one step.
Yeah.
Which was always fun. I was lucky enough to do a couple. And they were a bit of a, you know, you sort of sat there and I was like, shit, I've got the power to say yes or no here. But, you know, you never really thought of that because it was like, yep, this kid switched on, this kid knows what he wants to do. Yeah, he's going to go do this, going to go do that. You know, no dramas whatsoever. And one of the other funny, well, not funny, it was quite funny actually, but one of the other things we used to do as well. So, you know, you do the physical fitness assessment, you know, the PFA, yeah. Classic, yeah. You'd get there, and when I first got there, we were allowed to run with them at that point, and I hadn't done a beep test in years, you know, and yeah, being Air Force, fitness, wasted heartbeats, sort of thing, you know, in terms of, yeah, you pass your physical fitness assessment every year, but like run, nah. If I wasn't playing sport or something like that, I wasn't really interested in running.
Yeah.
So I got the DFR and the PFA and the push-ups and sit-ups and then the beat test, and we were running. And I'd done one in years, and one of the army boys came up to us. He's like, "You can run this one." I just looked at him and I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you can run it." And you're standing there in a bright orange shirt, this, you know, DFR staff. He's like, "Yeah, you'll be right." And I'm like, "All right, no worries." So you go out there and he's like, "Oh, by the way, you can't fail." Sets a bad example. And I was like, straight away, you're like, yeah, you're actually right. I can't. Shit. Am I going to pass this? I passed it, but I wasn't going to let on that I was struggling. Yeah. So then after that, I was like, all right, bit of a wake up, you know, sitting behind a desk. Maybe I should just keep a little bit more fitness and whatnot. But they were always fun because, yeah, as you know, they take 15 people off the street every year for Commando Direct Entry. And their assessment levels are a lot higher than the standard. You know, instead of 7.5, they've got to hit 10.5 on the beat test. And when you go down for that and you get stabbed to run it, not knowing it's a Commando beat test.
Yeah.
The you can't fail comes into it, and I vomited that afternoon.
I'm bloody positive when I did my PFA that no one did it with us.
Yeah, well, for a period of time, we were allowed to, and then they stopped it.
Oh, right.
Because they thought that, you know, by running it with them, you were helping them to pass.
Sure.
And you weren't. You know, I always argued black and blue that, you know, if I run a beep test standing next to somebody, I'm not helping them to pass because my hand is not on their shoulder and I'm not skull dragging them through the PFA or through the beep test. You know, I might be setting a pace, yes, because I've run it, you know, millions of times, or, you know, however many times I'd run it, and you knew that you could pace yourself and I could, you know, beep to beep and not stop, no dramas. But if you're not fit enough, you're not passing it.
And it's not, that might come into play if it was high. Like if you're thinking about, if say you're speaking of that 13, 14 beep test, pacing and stuff is critical.
Mate,
but you just need to be fit to get, what is it, 7.5?
So 7.5 for the Army.
Like that's not high.
6.5 for the Air Force and 6 for the Navy.
Yeah, I know, especially if you're going the combat core route, especially grunts, you want to be above 7.5. Like,
Yeah, you know, if you're going to join the army and you want to go infantry, you want to be able to do 7.5 in your sleep.
and the biggest thing is, and it's not that you won't pass anything in the grunts, or I'll talk about grunts because I know, it's you open yourself up for injury if you are unfit, and then you know normally the pipeline to be an infantry soldier in the units is 6 to 7 months. But if you open yourself up to injury, next thing you've got 2 years because you can't get out because you've hurt yourself, and it can ruin your career.
And
That's the whole point of fitness in the army. Is well, one of the big ones is not getting injured.
yeah.
Is
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. You know, and that was some of the things that you talk about with the guys when they come in on the E session. You'd sort of ask them, you know, who can do this on the beep test, or who can get to here, or whatnot, or who's thinking about this, and you'd sort of try and hammer home that, you know, it's not just it's a minimum standard.
Yeah.
It's not something that you need to get to and be like, yay, I can join. It's like you need to be able to sort of do it comfortably and be able to sort of do it again.
yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, let's say with us with the 2.4, you know, it's meant to be anaerobic, so you can just do one after the other sort of thing.
yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. But it's also meant to be like on your worst day too. You can still pass it.
correct.
Yeah. Like I know at least the infantry standard, I think the young standard at least for defence or army is 11:18 2.4 run,
Yep.
40 push-ups I believe, and 100 sit-ups.
Yeah.
But like the infantry standard at Singleton, at least when I was there, was below 10 on the run, 60 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 10 strict heaves.
Yep.
Which 10 strict heaves is a fair bit. But the thing is, majority of dudes at Singo, what gets you on heaves is carrying extra weight.
Yeah.
That's everything.
Made to get you on everything. Trust
Yeah,
me.
and if you're at the end of Singo, you're fit anyway. You're light and fit. Like I remember I was down the beach here. We had beach PT and then we had some drinks after it. But Lily was there, my partner, and she's like, "You can tell who the new guys are." I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Because they're all really like skinny." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's School of Infantry. They've come out of the school for 4 or 5 or whatever it is, 4 months."
Yeah.
And yeah, they're just it's been just all like cardio, crushing PT.
Yeah. Yeah, that was why I could never join the army.
Yeah, nah.
No, it was always fun. I mean, I used to play soccer and cricket, and I played state level soccer for a couple of years and things like that. And I was, played in a few games and whatnot as well many years ago. But yeah, it was always for a purpose or for a reason. So yeah, I reckon if I'd have joined the army, I would have been fine with it because it's just part of the job. It's part of what comes with it. But I was quite happy to sort of, I guess, live the Air Force life and then to go down the path of a techo and you techo shuffle or whatever else, and it come to drill and things like that, you were just sort of like, you're just the techo. You sort of ostracized a little bit from the rest of the Air Force because you're a bit more different, and you kind of were in a way, but it was fun because you sort of lived up to it and you sort of played on it a little bit as well and things like that, which I think most people do in most career paths in defence.
Yeah, but it makes it individual too.
It does, yeah.
Like even if you talk about, techos do this and it's not really in line, but but that's in line with what techs do.
That's it. Yeah.
Same with grunts. Like grunts are shit at drill, like because you just don't do it. Like
it's not something that you guys are sort of not bred for, but it's not something you taught or trained for. You train for other purposes, and marching on a battlefield is definitely not one of them.
Yeah, like I think I do drill twice a year max, and the first time's Anzac Day, and the second time's if you're in trouble.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, nah. And that's the same, I guess, from Techo Land. When I went to DFR, I had to go buy all new uniforms.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have service dress that fit because you just never wore it. You were always in, we had CWDs back in the day and then cams. We ended up in the cams all the time. That's literally all you wore. So when it come to, unless you did an Anzac Day or something like that, or, you did a parade or a Remembrance Day or whatnot. But you never wore service dress. So when I got posted into DFR, that was dress of the day. So I had to go buy a new uniform. I was like, oh, shit. Because let me tell you, I was, I think I went through Wagga. When I came out of Wagga, I was probably about 95 to 98 kilos. And when I got to DFR, I was sitting around 105 to 107. So it was, none of those uniforms fit. But it's definitely different in, I guess, your mustering or your trade or your career path in defence, as opposed to sort of some of the things you can get away with or do, it's very, very different. But yeah, fast forward back to Brizzy and careers promotions, expos, things like that, getting out and about, and went through a relationship breakdown at the time as well. So that was always fun and interesting. You sort of learn a few things about yourself and whatnot. And I think that was when some of those things about, when I said where I compartmentalise really well and box a few things up, that's when a few things sort of started coming out. But it was always like, well, it's a relationship. You need to worry about that sort of side of things. So just bury those ones a bit further.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that kept me going was the fact that I was able to immerse myself in work and not really focus on that side of things until, after it all was sort of said and done. And then even still, work was always something that you could immerse yourself in and throw yourself in. And looking back on it, right or wrongly, you make those decisions for yourself. And I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. Some in work and some out, personal life and things like that, friendships, relationships, that sort of stuff. But they're my mistakes I own, my mistakes that I've made. So, life goes on, and you just live and sort of deal with them and hope you don't make them again.
Yeah.
Some you might, some you won't. But, I think that's just life. It's one big learning curve. So I was, living in DFR, living in the city, doing trade talks, doing schools, doing expos, things like that. And then my third year there, I went back to interviewing. And I was lucky enough to have, so DFR's tri-service, as you're aware.
Yeah.
So you're working with Army and Navy. And I learnt a few things about different trades and different personalities and things like that in that time. But you adapted, you adapt and overcome as you always do. And I had a really, 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 my first year there actually, infantry major, and Jesus, you never saw him, but he knew everything about you, knew everything about you. We used to joke he was off playing golf half the time, but he wasn't, he was working. But he was never around, but he was always there, sort of thing. And it was just interesting to see how that kind of worked, because I was like, I think I learnt a few things off him, and sort of moulded a few things that I've done since then. But yeah, that was good. And then Navy boss, and then back to another army boss as well. And he was different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But still, good guy, just a different operator and a different kettle of fish. But yeah, so we, the second year we were there, they started putting commandos in DFR, one to give them a break and two to also try and help that 15 off the street. So that was good, because I ran into one that I'd seen a couple of times in the back of the and had a few chats with and things like that. And that was the thing, I guess, about going transport. You got to meet a lot of people, and you got to speak to a lot of different people in careers and past services, things like that, even, foreign countries and things like that, like just transporting troops around the Middle East, Americans or the Canadians or the Czechs or the Slovaks or, just all the different countries. You got to actually liaise, meet, speak, eat the food, that sort of stuff. Some of the messes were brilliant. Some of the food was crap. Some of the food was brilliant. The in-flight rations you got out of certain places, were American, and they were all frozen roast meals, so you'd crank the oven over down the back, throw them in, and I promise you I'd wake up every single grunt in the back of that plane when you threw a roast lamb in that oven, because it was just that smell that came out, and you sat there and you thought, boys, I can't give you anything, but sorry, but I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
It's that rivalry, it's that, it's the colour of the pen you chose.
Yeah.
But it was always quite funny when you do things like that. But then same token, you'd pick up some of the special operations guys, and you'd take one look at them and just be like, hang on a sec, boys, I'll grab the 6 meals for the crew, and then I'm going to turn the esky around and go for it, lads.
Yeah.
Because it was just that sort of, go for it. You just get into it.
Yeah.
And you just watch these 6 blokes just devour this esky like it's almost like, shit, are you going to eat that esky too? Can I have that back? But you gain that appreciation, they loved you for it. Certain people you'd kick out of your seat, if you were, because you'd always set up your own little area or whatnot. Certain people you'd kick out, other people you'd sort of just let get away with and things like that. But I think something that's always kept me in defence, and something that's always been a feature of Techo life, and then post that, is that every day is different. From, you could be working shift work one day to flying to Townsville the next day to pick up something for the Royal, or someone for the Royal Flying Doctor Service, because they can't transplant a patient back to Brisbane or whatever, to, some of the boys flew seals and penguins for the, Australia Zoo and things like that, to throwing, bales of hay out the back of planes in the floods to feed stranded animals and stuff like that, to doing search and rescue, laying on a 6-inch piece of foam in the cockpit down next to the pilot's foot with a pair of binoculars in your hand, staring out the window, covering squares of kilometres of ocean, looking for a bobbing yacht or, something like that, to, flying ballot boxes to prime ministers, to just, it was, met a couple of them. Senators to, I missed out on Bliss and Esso. I was devastated. One of my last rados, I missed out by a week. I was trying to stay longer too, because one of the guys was delayed coming over and the replacement hadn't done his fitness assessment and stuff like that. So my 4 month became 5 months, and I was trying to stay a bit longer, and they're like, no, because we'll have to give you Rockford. And it's like, I don't want it, just let me stay and then let me go home, I know, but we have, so you try and push things like that. But I missed out on Bliss and Esso by a week. And there's a film clip of theirs that actually has a fair bit of footage from the Middle East in it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, and I can point out a few boys that I know as techos that were in that footage as well. So I was a bit devastated with that. But we got Kingswood, Dr. Carl, met Dr. Carl, had a pretty, he's actually
what a weapon,
mate. He is the most eccentric bloke I've ever met, and the best part about it is that's him. There is no persona, there is no nothing. Like he got off the plane and he was wearing like bright yellow pants with like a pink sparkly disco straight out of the 70s top, long sleeve, and it's just like Jesus. And you start talking to him and you're thinking, wow, eccentric as buggery, but good to speak to, good to learn from. And when you had those like those force element tours, it was always, if you were lucky enough to get on those flights, you'd always sit and chat with them and whatnot. And it was good to get an appreciation from their side of things on why they're there and whatnot, not just to tell jokes or whatever. It was just, it's always a good understanding from those sides. And then vice versa, they'd always ask about how you're finding it, what's back home for you, all that sort of stuff. So it was good because you get that appreciation. Plus it was cool, Dr. Carl, Tony Abbott, Peter Credlin, Warren Snowden, people like that you just sit and speak to. Military leaders from other countries and things like that as well, so Techo World is very, especially in transport, it was very, very good for that, because you could network without networking just by getting to know people and things like that. And then, years later you run into them, in DFR, or you run into them somewhere else, and as you know, being military, you sort of form these bonds and friendships with people, and then posting cycles come along, everyone scatters, and then when you run into them, 3 to 6 years later, it's like you never left.
Yeah.
You can just pick up that conversation with that person, be like, mate, fill me in on your last 3 years. Yeah, perfect. Bang. It's like you've never, ever left. Whereas if you try to do that, to friends that are on the outside or whatever, it's like, who are you?
Yeah.
So yeah, that side of it's good in that aspect and whatnot. But
we had none of the entertainment when we went. I was there for 9 months.
When did you go? What year?
17.
17, yeah. See, I was out by then. I just left DFR to come to Edinburgh.
We were hunting for it. Like, we were purposely setting up trip tickets to go places on patrol that may have had something. So our base was tiny. And we heard that at one of the American bases, I won't say which one, the Miami Dolphin cheerleaders were going.
Yeah.
And we're like putting in all this stuff of like, righto, we need to patrol this area, and then like we just happened to like have to refuel here, and this whole thing, and it was the most work I've ever seen the boys do. Like normally when it was like, nah, boss, that's your job.
Yep.
It's like all the lads are like, nah, and then we have to do this and this, and it didn't go ahead, or like we were like a day late. So that didn't happen, and then I was away when Malcolm Turnbull came.
Yep.
At the time. And then I was in Greece probably at the time. I was on Kentucky, and like,
mate, those stories.
I'm a big fan of like politicians, whatever.
Yeah.
But nah, like meet the PM or Mike and Tiki. I can tell you, anyone wouldn't be like that was one. It would have been 2 hours out of a tour, almost 16 days away. That was wicked.
Yeah.
And then the other one, which we didn't get, but we're like all tooled up was we're meant to transport General Mattis
Yep.
at one point. Now I don't know how it fell through. I believe, and this through the digger rumor mill, through the digger net,
The digger net.
is that they actually worn out multiple convoys when they're moving someone that high end. They worn out multiple convoys, and then it's like last minute random choose one. So there's less chance of one getting hit.
yeah.
What does seems plausible because the boys were like, yeah, this is who we're picking up. And I was sort of like, if we know we're picking him up, we're probably not taking him. Like we probably wouldn't know till he's sitting in the back of the vehicle with his escort. But the boys were all like, if we're ever going to get in like a massive, like, you know, stick, it's going to be this. Like, and then the boy, like, I saw guys like going and buying knives and shit. And they had like 4 knives. I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, you're in the back of the Bushmaster and I've got the gun on, like, I've got the gun on the roof. Like, okay, sure. Like, it's going to happen. I love that. Never.
Yeah.
I actually feel bad for the lads because they were I was excited too.
Yeah. Yeah, VIP. So for us, you know, when VIPs came in and things like that, you always had a shadow aircraft and whatnot. But yeah, those days were lead up to and post. You know, if you had a broken aircraft, they were getting fixed no matter what. So they were big nights or long days or long periods even. There was a period over Christmas where some of the boys, you know, were doing 14, 15-hour days for close to 15, 16 days in a row just to get things done to sort of be able to facilitate what needed to be facilitated.
Yeah.
So you always, those sorts of things. But yeah, you took it in your stride when you were there because, you know, you knew what you were doing. You knew, you know, back home you might have kicked up a bit of a stink because, you know, it might be some pilot going for flying around the flagpole to get the currencies up for touch and go landings or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a bit of a contentious issue at 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning when you just want to go home. But you know, over there it was completely different. You know, and if it was, you know, for something specific back home like floods or support or something like that, no issues whatsoever. But the old joy flight around the flagpole used to raise a few eyebrows or whatnot.
Yeah.
But things like that. So VIP and tasking and stuff like that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, all hands on deck. Get what you need done. Regardless, you know, long hours, whatever. Swap, go. Yeah. It was the old mantra of eat, sleep, gym, work, repeat. Yeah. And that's what it became.
Do you miss it?
That lifestyle? Yeah, miss it completely. But at the same token, you know, I drove a desk at DFR for 3 years. Then, surprise, surprise, got posted to Edinburgh. And they always say, you know, and this is probably good advice for people as well, there's always one point in your career where you end up somewhere where you don't want to be.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm taking it as Edinburgh. But in all honesty, it wasn't the place that I didn't want to come to. It was sort of the work that I kind of didn't want to do. So I didn't really want to immerse myself back in that sort of operational tempo of operational aircraft. But I was glad I did actually because, I came back down to Edinburgh. I had, so I tore my ACL twice in Brizzy while I was at recruiting. I was playing indoor handball. Kind of like the Olympic version, but an abridged game of it. People, when I say that, people look at me funny and go, handball? You tore your ACL playing handball? No, mate, not two square like you used to play at high school. Yeah, sort of indoor. I hyperextended my knee and heard it go bang, and that was quite amusing. No, wasn't fun. So, 6 weeks on the couch for that the first time round. PlayStation, never owned one, bought one the night before my surgery. And then, that's pretty much all I did for 6 weeks straight. It was quite I let myself go in that time. Probably could have done a few better things with my time, but second time round I ended up studying a diploma in photography because that's a bit of a hobby of mine, and I figured that, you know, maybe that was a better use of my time rather than PlayStation for 8 to 12 hours again. Second time round I did it, came off a motorbike. That was quite fun. Sort of just been given the approval to get back on the bike as transport because it was brilliant. It was cheap, easy. And fun as well. But second time around I came off the bike and hobbled into the orthopaedic surgeon's office, and he looked at me and he went, "What have you done?" I said, "I came off a motorbike." He literally didn't even look at me. He turned around, opened his calendar up and said, "How's Tuesday next week sound?" And I was like, "Sure, okay." And had it redone again. So I was like, all right, no more motorbike for a while. And since then, ended up buying a boat and a few other toys. So the bike's sort of been on the back burner. Love another one, but it's like, yeah, where do you draw the line at toys?
Yeah.
You got to adult some point in life, as my mother would tell me. But
Our parents will always tell us that.
oh yeah, but yeah. So tore the ACL. So when I actually got posted to Edinburgh, I was medically downgraded, so I wasn't going away. So the frequency of going away was not there for that first year. So it was a good sort of get back into the tempo of shift work and high tempo environment without the constant deployments that the other boys were doing. So, of course you got the ribbing of, yeah, you're not going away, I'll swap with you, hey, blah, 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 blah. But at the same token, I kind of missed the trips, but it was good to just sort of ease back into it so that when, I eventually got the upgrade through and started going away, it was, Resolutes and things like that. I was always volunteering for them just to get out of Adelaide, really. But yeah, I was always volunteering for trips and stuff like that. Because one, I missed it a lot, and two, yeah, to get out of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So it was a double-edged sword for that. But yeah, that was fun because, you go away again. Sure, you're traveling with a larger crew, by default of the operation of the aircraft. So there's a lot more air crew than you have on a Herc. So you got, a larger crew, and it's a bit more segregated, I guess, because you're not really working in close, with the crew. With the flight engineers, but the rest of the guys down the back, so surveillance operators and things like that, you're not really liaising with unless they're trying to get you to do stuff. But yeah, so traveling, and going away with the Orion was actually quite fun because it was a different operating environment. They did different things. It was cool to see some of the technology in the back of that aircraft, even though it's ancient and old. It was like, shit, okay. Cool. So it gave you a different appreciation of some of the stuff those guys did,
Yeah.
and all the sort of ISR that they did in the Middle East when they were there and things like that. You sort of gained a different level of appreciation and an understanding. So yeah, it was fun to get away with them because again, with the guys going away, that sort of stuff. But also, back on tools, back on aircraft, out there and about, not so much the responsibility that you had on C-130s in terms of, when it was, you were going away on C-130s, unless you're on a deployment, if it was just like an overnight task or a week here or there or whatever, being the Cobra, you were signing the paperwork for that aircraft, so you were putting your name against it to say, yeah, so everything's done, we're good to go. It's sort of that little bit of a, okay, I'm signing for it. So if anything happens, it's like, I'm the first person to come and knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Or whatnot. So yeah, there's a lot more of a responsibility in that sense. But different units operate differently and things like that. So when you went away with the Orion, you always had a sergeant or someone above that was looking after that stuff. So that was great. You might have done it every now and then and got everything prepped and ready for them if they were running behind or stuff like that. But it was good to get away. Darwin, I loved it up there because grew up there as a teenager and the old boy still lives up there, so I was getting fishing with him and it was almost free trips to see the family really. Went through a cyclone up there with the guys, which was quite amusing.
But in the plane?
No, not in the plane, on the base. So it was cyclone a couple of years ago that hit Darwin. We were up there and got all the warnings and everything, and the SI was a little bit outdated, so it was a bit of a shit fight with things like that. And if you're going to drop off ration packs, you think you'd put them in a bunker where you're going to expect people to be, not put them in the mess hall. Yeah, good. And not be around and things like that. But those trips were all on base. And then, typical of the Air Force, when things hit the fan and, accommodation becomes unlivable and stuff like that because a tree's fallen on it or, it's been torn apart by a roof torn off or whatever from a cyclone, you're in hotels. Yeah. So, so for the rest of that.
The boys aren't, my boys.
So for 12 days, the rest of that trip we were, split between two hotels in Darwin. 2 hotels in Darwin. Living it up. So, to and from work, obviously you got your allowances and things like that. So it makes it a little bit more interesting and, you're not eating mess food and stuff like that. But, that's definitely, when I said earlier on that, the Air Force choose their accommodation by the stars. Yeah. Oh, mate, that is so true. That is so true.
It's ridiculous.
Some of the places that I've been and stayed in, you know, I'd probably never stay if I was going to those countries by myself. You know, it would be backpackers, or it would be, you know, the cheapest accommodation I could find. You know, not the Evergreen, L'Oreal, or places like that, and, you know, Malaysia or whatnot. But it was always good fun because you just got to, you know, you got your sleep, but then you're working for it as well if the plane broke or stuff like that as well. So, you know, it was almost like it was, you know, and submariners get this as well, you know, like they go out, do what they need to do, whatnot, and whenever they pull into a port, you know, they're straight in hotels. Yeah. You know, and they need it almost, you know, because being able to go, you know, for so long underwater without seeing the sun, yeah, I'd want that break as well.
Yeah, fucking oath.
Yeah, those guys do it tough, but yeah, it was always funny because, yeah, you get that rivalry, you know, you boys hoochies dig your own bed, dig your own pit, that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, you know, you see those memes and whatnot, the Wi-Fi's down, you know, the poor little Raffies there crying or whatever, and, you know, it's raining on you guys drenched and you're just sitting there like, oh, it's just normal for us.
It's all relative too, though.
It is, yeah, it is relative to the job, and that's where that, you know, Navy navigate, Army live by, and Air Force choose.
There's also a lot to say about the camaraderie of going through that shit together too.
Oh, hell yeah.
And pride of it too, like pride of corps.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I was talking to a girl, and a good friend who's RAF, and she was like, I wish we had more of that, because she's like, I know me and him were walking out of, me and her were walking out of like the coffee shop on base, and like there was an officer, like, oh fuck, you know, getting stabbed, proper salute, like whatever. And she's like, I just wish it was more like, we are very proper like that. Like I know, like she's come down to the compound before at work, and like to 7 hour, I'm like, yeah, you need to be in step, like proper to any officer, like, you know, any sergeant above, any secco, like they're not a corporal, they're a section commander, like blah blah blah. And she's like, what? And it's like, oh, and she was like, I almost wish it was a bit more like this, because it feels military, like it feels proper, like boot shit. Same outfield, like I know the boys, and like esprit de corps is a big thing.
Yep.
And the infantry, they have it because no one else does it. I was talking to a major about this today, because we're doing some stuff for resilience training for the boys, and it's like the reason why grunts are proud is because no one else is willing to do that shit. And it's like, the shitter it gets, the better for the shit talk to everyone else.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it is. And yeah, you see that with a lot of infantry. You know, I got a fair few infantry mates and stuff like that. And, you know, even those ex-guys, you still see it. And that's one of the things that almost everybody says when they leave the military is, yes, yeah, Air Force Navy might not have such a regimented esprit de corps or whatnot is, but when you leave the military, you leave that brotherhood, you lose that sense of belonging, or as you quite happily put it many times over, you lose that tribe. Yeah. You know, you lose that, and that's one of the biggest things. And I think, you know, speaking to people, I guess, you know, I'm coming up to 17 years now in defence, and speaking to people that are sort of a lot older than me that are looking at getting out and things like that, the older, when they're looking to retire, it's not so bad, you know, because they know they're just going to retire. They're not going to go do anything else. But the guys that are getting out, you know, that are like our age or a little bit older, that have still got, you know, 10, 15, 20 years of working life left, you know, they're getting out and they're sort of not knowing what to do with themselves, or not knowing where to turn, or not knowing where to go. And I think that's why a lot of guys look at, you know, police, fireys, or, you know, paramedics or things like that.
It's also the reason a lot of guys get in trouble.
It is, yeah, definitely. You run off the rails. And as I said, I've run off the rails for sure. You know, I've made some pretty shit decisions and things like that, just from, you know, things that have gone on in life and sort of affected us and whatnot. Common theme seems to be around relationships, but, you know, it is what it is, sort of thing, and you try and learn from it. But yeah, you lose that sense, and when you lose that sense, that's when it starts to derail. And, you know, I've had some good mates, you know, really good mates, say a few things to me that's sort of been like, fuck, okay, let's start this, you know, like, let's go get help, let's get you doing, you know, on this path, and let's get you through that. And, you know, been there and sat through some pretty heavy shit with a fair few people, and it's like, oh man. And you sort of sit there, and I think it was both good and bad for me, because it was like, all right, cool, I'm learning what you're going through and some of the techniques and things like that. So when I started to self-identify, I was like, ooh, lock that box, or, you know, put it away quickly, that when it got to the point where all my walls were stripped down, that's when everything came back out. And that's when it's been like, this year's been a real big eye-opener for us in that sense. because it's like, you know, I was quite happy to put my hand up and go get help. You know, I was quite happy to put my hand up and go get help when my marriage broke down, because, yeah, I was at rock bottom, you know, like literally I was went for a ride on the motorbike that morning up into the hills in Queensland. So it was a beautiful morning. It was dewy, bit of fun, you know, leathers on, new sliders on, so you drop the knee and throw sparks because the magnesium and stuff like that. And I went for a really spirited ride in the morning before any traffic really got on the road. Sat down, had lunch, whatever, was on the way home. And I don't know what, really don't know what came over me, but I was on that ride home. I was just like, fuck it, I want out. You know, life had sort of just got to that point where it was like, I don't know what to do, don't know where I'm looking at. Like, I'd tried so hard to try and make things work, blah, 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 blah. I was like, fuck it, I want out. And I spin the throttle and, you know, watched the speed sort of climb and looked up, fairly straight road and truck coming the other way. And I was just like, well, if I inch that centre line, you know, closer and closer. And I think I backed out at about, you know, it was well over 200, but backed out of the throttle and just sort of, I don't know what stopped me. Honestly, don't know what stopped me, but I remember going home, you know, having a shower, chilling out, sort of had dinner and went to bed and woke up the next morning and was just like, what the fuck did I do yesterday? You know, like, why? And I remember jumped on the bike again in the morning to get to work, which people sort of asked me, was like, are you real? And I'm like, it was just my transport. It was a mode of transport, you know, it was what it was. I disassociated from what happened the day before and jumped on the bike to get to work. And I remember walking into work and I just went straight to the folders where we kept the keys for the DFR vehicles and signed one out and turned around and I had an army captain, engineer, top bloke. He just looked at me, he's like, you right? And I'm like, I think so. He's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, where are you off to? I said, Enoggera. He's like, why? I said, I'm going out to Psych. He's like, all right, do you need me to drive? And I'm like, no, I'll be fine. I'll get there. And that was sort of, I was just like, fuck, what am I doing? So I went out to Psych section in Enoggera and did the mental health intake and whatnot. And from there ended up seeing a psychologist for a while. She was a civvy chick. Well, I thought she was a civvy chick. It was quite funny, actually. Saw her in, you know, civilian sort of practice and whatever else and chatted away and had zero clue about her background or anything like that because I didn't really bother to Google or whatever. And it was brilliant. And then I think probably about a month in, she's gone, it's going to be easy for you to see me soon. I was like, sorry? She's like, yeah, I'm moving back onto base. And I was like, what? She's like, oh, yeah, I'm army. And I just looked and laughed. I was like, wow, you know, like just, it was a bit of an eye-opener. It was a bit of a shock as well because, you know, I think sometimes you sort of, people sort of sit and think and go, all right, Defence Force, you get your free medical, all that sort of stuff. And it's brilliant. The care is brilliant, you know, but I think sometimes, you know, it's sort of almost like you kind of need to disassociate with certain things and, you know, get that perspective view of a different sort of practice. Like the army psychologists and that, when, you know, you did your POPs and returned to Australia and things like that, they were brilliant, they were fine. But for certain things, I guess, you know, elsewhere, you know, because of the experience or the depth or whatever of that professional healthcare is brilliant. So, so I went through all of that. It wasn't a proud moment or whatnot, but it was a learning experience. Definitely learnt a hell of a lot about myself through that. Might have repeated a few of the mistakes and things and whatnot, but I think that's just human, you know, human nature.
Yeah.
You live and learn. But that was a bit confronting for a few people, like family and friends and stuff like that, I guess, which as it, you know, you'd expect and whatnot. But it sort of just drew it into perspective, I guess, how sort of lost I'd got within myself, even though, you know, Monday to Friday, it was just that perfect work persona and whatever else. I was sort of hiding behind the fact that, I was hiding behind that. And I'd sort of stopped drinking by the time I got to Brizzy and stuff like that. Not, you know, drinking, but, you know, even social drinking, I'd sort of stopped, I guess, because, you know, years ago, different cultures, different environments, you know, like you can tiki stories. We've all been there. We've all done it. You know, we've all backed up, you know, days and days of drinking or, you know, gone on trips and broken and just lived large and had fun and all the rest of that.
No, I can't relate.
Yeah, there's something different about being able to open your hotel door, dive into the pool, and then come up to the bar. But that's sort of holiday life, not work life. But we all sort of do it and whatnot. I think young and invincible and all the rest of that. But after a while, I was growing up a little bit, I guess, and I'd sort of stopped it. And I was lucky I did, because I guess going through all that stuff, I was lucky that I probably wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
Because it probably would have spiraled further and harder and whatnot. So I guess that was one advantage that I had. And even now, I still don't sort of drink and stuff like that. Like, I have a few drinks socially. Like, I quite happily get on it with you if you want every now and then and talk shit or whatnot. But yeah, it's a rarity for me to sort of, get out and drink. And it's probably more of a, not a self-protection, but it's probably just that growing up, like, it's like, I think I realized that you don't need to have alcohol to have fun. So that's just been a choice that I've sort of made and tried to stick to.
Yeah.
But those sorts of things, I mean, not proud of, but still standing, still living, still kicking on with life, fixing cars for you and stuff like that. And
fucking hell.
Sitting here sort of wondering how I've got to here actually, but it's all good.
It's all a story of how you get bloody places. I think the same thing. Like, how I've got to, like, fucking from a brain tumor, from Afghanistan, a brain tumor. Next thing I'm sitting in my studio with you, like in here, being like,
yeah, it's
how the fuck did this happen?
I know, it's funny, hey, like it's that perspective when you sit back and look in that hindsight that you think, fuck, I could have done this differently, I could have done that better. But then knowing full well, if you'd made those decisions and made those choices or changes, you wouldn't end up where you are, like you wouldn't be sitting in this, with all the leather couches, sitting with a podcast, cranking one out. You'd probably be doing something completely different,
And not as productive.
Probably not. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, I think I've tried to, from this time around, I've tried to immerse myself more in things and help more people or get out and do things. And, as I said to you the other day, definite love to come, support that veterans motorbike rally across the Simpsons. Yeah, the safari, Definitely want to go and do things like that or whatever else, just because, it's that sort of, it's just things you can apply yourself to, and it's in that veteran sense. And it's funny, since meeting you and following you on Insta and then following all the other stuff as well and things like that, like, it's that you start to realize, like, that there's actually a massive younger generation of veteran community out there.
Yeah.
From your bar salts, your tactical recovery, through to like Convict Coffee and things like that, and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's actually, there's a huge sort of, huge imprint that, not many people know of, because there isn't that exposure like it is for, say, VVCS or Legacy or Commando Welfare or things like that. That, it's sort of cool to sort of try and help out or be involved in or whatever else or whatnot, plus laughing at you when the Sierra breaks down is quite fun.
Yeah.
So, it's good to help out and it's good to do stuff like that, because it sort of doesn't give you that purpose back, but it sort of just gives you something else to focus on. Yeah. And you're with a bunch of guys that have, been there, done that, in that sense, that they understand where you're coming from, or they understand, if you're feeling down, or, your combo is a bit different, or, they can sort of, they know what you're going to say without you saying it, so you don't have to say it, if that makes sense. Because that's probably one of the hardest things, is actually opening up and talking, is having that courage to take that first step and be like, yeah, look, I need help, And there was, years ago, there was always that stigma around defence, and mental health and stuff like that, but it's come a hell of a long way since then, like, it's come a massive amounts in leaps and bounds, and nowadays it's, it's encouraged and supported to get out there and do it, and I think you need to, like, you almost have to, like, it's something you need to do. Like, if you're sitting there thinking, shit, maybe I should get help, don't think about it, go do it.
Yeah.
Because you learn a lot of things about yourself, you learn a lot of things about, recovery, or that help, or what's available or what's not, the outlets to you and things like that there's a lot around and a lot there that you never would have known of if you didn't say anything, or if you didn't go do something. And I think, part of it's kind of like I said to you, let's do this or let's do something like that, is because, if this can help someone, then so be it. One person's better than none. Yeah. If it helps 1 to 10 or 20, or if someone laughs or whatever, it's like, shit, I didn't know that, or whatever. Who cares, like.
Fuck, mate, I enjoy doing it anyway.
Well, yeah.
I don't care if no one listens. I actually, I like legitimately enjoy talking shit.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, it's I don't mind it either, you know, but it's just, for me, it's like, well, if I can help somebody or whatever or whatnot. Like, it's funny, you know, I was listening to your last one and, you know, sports bet and stuff like that and whatnot. And, you know, it's pretty funny. Like, it's not I wouldn't say it's a culture or a habit, but, you know, there's guys that, day trade, there's guys that, you know, invest, there's guys that gamble and stuff like that. And I've dabbled in it every now and then. And, you know, I've actually been paying for my life coach on from Sportsbet.
Yeah.
You know, for the last month, last 2 months actually, I've been paying for a life coach out of the winnings. And it's pretty funny because I told her and she cracked up laughing. And I just said, you know, she literally looked at me or looked at us on Zoom and was like, who says gambling doesn't pay? You know?
Yeah. And it'd be funny because you'd think a life coach would be like, whatever you do, don't gamble, but I can only afford you if I do.
It's not that I can only afford it if I do. It was
Raise it up a bit.
Yeah, I'd won a fair bit of money and was just like, shit, you know. I think I was averaging about $500 a week, pulling it out over, you know, 5-6 week period. But it was like, yeah, I'm going to pay for it with this, you know. At least it's going to something productive.
Yeah.
Because that was something that, you know, I did off my own back because it was like, yep, yeah, psychologist and all that sort of stuff was good or whatever. But it's kind of funny off Instagram of all things, you know, scrolling through Insta and saw a page and you know the sliding bar questions and stuff like that, and answered a few of those questions, and then got this random message, and at the end of it was like, look, you know, if you're interested, I offer a free sort of 30-minute session, you know, and I'm not one to turn down a free thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, cool. So I did it, and then sort of connected with Fee, and she was like, all right, cool, these are the prices and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I'm in, let's do it. You know, a couple of sessions, and then changed a little bit different sort of support levels and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, no worries, happy to pay that again, sweet, cool. Like,
so what does a life coach actually do?
mate,
Because all I think of is like those people that stand up and just be like, you can be brilliant. I drive a Ferrari, so can you. Like,
you
that's
know what, mate, you or I could probably do it as well, you know, like if you did the training and stuff like that. But no, it's sort of, it's different depending on who you get, because you've got like, you know, business mentoring and life coaches or business coaches, or, you know, everyone puts a different spin on it. But at the end of the day, it's all, they're probably going to shoot me for saying this, but it's all very similar in terms of what they do and like how they talk to you and what they get you to try and understand and things like that as well, you know. So from a life coach perspective, I guess it's a lot more about thinking sort of thing. So, you know, it's probably some of the stuff the psychologist would tell you as well. It's just you're not going to a psychologist for it. So, you know, like things like when you get stuck in, you know, repetitive thoughts and repetitive moods, you know, going to a document on your computer and sitting there and reading it and going, all right, so why, what brought it on? You know, what day did it happen? What brought it on? What did it cost you? You know, so like if you sit there dwelling on the couch going, what if? You know, and that's all you think about for 4 hours. You don't really think about the fact that you've sat there for 4 hours going, what if in your head? You've just wasted 4 hours out of your day.
Yeah.
You know, so, or longer, you know, depending on how long it goes for. So yeah, you're writing those sorts of things down. And then once you start realizing it, you sort of can sit there and start to recognize what you're doing and the patterns, because everything's in life's a pattern. Yeah, everything's a pattern. So you're sitting there recognizing what you're actually doing. And then it's like, all right, so how do I break that pattern? What do I do? You know, is it as simple as getting up off the couch, walking outside, grabbing the dog lead and the dog and going for a walk? You know, or is it putting on a movie or grabbing a book or something? You know, what do you do to break that sort of cycle? Excuse me. So yeah, so from that to, you know, universal laws, things like that, to, you know, just general chit chat really that you could probably do with a mate, but still it's coming from somebody that's sort of trained, you know, targeted, etc., and they know what to focus on rather than, you know, as opposed to you or I, like this, you know, we've started out DFR, gone to talking about cars, gone to talking about, you know, postings like, yeah, you know, whatever. We've gone all over the shop. Whereas, you know, in that hour session or whatever, it's targeted. It's like they've got a specific path they want to take you down, and they're going to take you down it and not going to let you deviate. They're not going to let you shift from it. So, you know, it's kind of, yeah, it is a mentorship really, or a coaching, just to help shift, you know, a mindset, or help give you an understanding, or help give you a tool where, you know, I think well, like what a psychologist would do. I remember Nat, my psych in Brizzy, she was like, if you're ever getting anxious, worked up or whatever else, stare at a clock. Watch a clock go around, the second-hand time click for 15 seconds, and then think of a couple of different colours and then something else. And then, you sit there and go, why am I doing this? And then when you do it, you're like, oh shit, that works.
Yeah.
And same with in terms of a life coach, it's kind of the same sort of stuff, just not as clinical or not as, in depth, but still tips, tricks and hints to sort of move past where you're at or shift a train of thought or, manifest or whatever else, like manifestation and things like that, positive thinking or projection rather than dwelling on the negatives and stuff like that, how you can shift your mindset to start thinking more positively and stuff like that. So a lot of it's common knowledge, but then you don't really think about it when you're in those patterns or those mindsets. You lose sight of some of that stuff and you tend to focus on the negativity a lot. And you've got to sort of shift away from that, and you got to be able to recognize you're doing it first, but then you've got to be able to figure out how, okay, I'm going to shift that, and what might work one day definitely doesn't work the next day. So you've always got to be on your toes thinking, all right, cool, what can I try or what can I do, but you've got to be able to recognize that as well. You can't just get stuck in that slump. So it's kind of like puts a bit of ownership back on you to, fix yourself in that sense, because really you can get all the help in the world, but if you don't want it or if you don't want to change from it, it doesn't matter what people tell you, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, sometimes a psychologist or someone like that will not call you on that bullshit. Whereas, someone who's a life coach is not, they're not fucking sitting there, looking at it from a clinical perspective. They're looking at it from a different perspective. So they are going to call you on your bullshit, Your mates not either, but then again, they know you quite well. This person's only sort of met you, understands a bit about you, puts you in, I guess, as a client. So their welfare their reputation or their business is sort of on the line, because they're out to achieve the best results they can for the services they offer.
Yeah.
So there's that accountability from their side, and then there's that drive and that push to make you sort of understand things and whatever else. And it's quite funny from a half-hour sort of Zoom session to, it's been a couple of months now. It's probably the best hour of the week almost, in terms of the catch up and whatever else, because it's pretty funny because, if there's one thing about me, I'm a bull in a china shop. Like if I want to do something, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Unless it was forced by parents, I'm doing it if it was by myself. So it's been quite fun in that sense, because I've just sort of grabbed a few things and run with them like a lot faster than she probably thought I would have. And the other time, and some other things that I've just sort of let go because it's like, well, it's not really serving that purpose, or it's not really doing that. But at the same token, I've identified that, so I've moved on to other things as well. So it's been good. It's been interesting. Sort of, I guess, probably winding down a little bit in terms of what is on offer and what I'm sort of getting out of it as well. So definitely served its purpose.
Yeah.
Definitely served its purpose. It's quite funny how it came about, but it's definitely helped giving us a different outlook on a few things and stuff like that. And it's been fun. It's definitely been fun. And, if I was to, I'd recommend sort of, business coaching or stuff like that or whatever, if you're going to become an entrepreneur or stuff like that, I'd definitely recommend it, or read some of the books that people recommend or things like that, because, a lot of the people out there are our sort of age, they're our sort of, demographic and background. They've sort of been through some of the stuff we've been through as well. So we're not getting the 70 or 80-year-old experience from back in their day now. We're getting the 30s to 50s sort of age group, our experience, our sort of thing. And it's like they're getting that same drive, or you're getting that understanding and that purpose, because, hey, this guy's almost the same age as me. He's been through some of the stuff as well, like, shit, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's been good. It's been, it's been fun, but, and it's been interesting, gambling has paid for it.
That's fucking, yeah. It's the best and worst life advice fucking ever.
Yeah, don't gamble. Like, or if you're going to do it responsibly. And I mean, I do it in swings and roundabouts. I honestly do. You know, there'll be a period where I will, and I won't put any more. If I lose it, I won't put any more money into it. You know, and I'll withdraw money out of it as well. I don't build up a big bank and then look at it and go and then bet it all on a bender. Yeah, I'll pull it out and put it to use. But yeah, I mean, I do it in swings and roundabouts. It's quite funny. Yeah, and you know. Lately, a lot of it's been multis on sports. You know, used to be horses and dogs, and now it's multis on sports. But yeah, fun times, different things.
Yeah, I don't bet, but one of my mates is on The Bachelorette at the moment.
Really? Was that legit? Or was it that
No
Insta?
shit.
Holy
Adrian,
shit,
man.
wow. I
So-
saw that and I was like, I was going to
bro.
comment, but I was like, nah, surely it's not. Like, can't be like that other dude that was on a couple of years ago that rocked up with his medals and
that
shit.
guy
Like,
was just
what
a
the
douchebag.
fuck?
But nah, this guy, man. So last time I saw Beans Boehner, he was on sub 2 for corporal, which in the infantry is, say, one of the hardest courses.
Yep.
Some will say the hardest. I'd probably say that's where snipers sort of sits.
Yep.
But it's sub 2 for corporal to be a sector commander. Like, it's not
It's like
easy.
6 weeks, isn't it? Or 4?
As longer, maybe it's 7.
Yeah.
So like mine was a 3-week range package to
Yep.
like safety supervise OIC the ranges, and complex ranges like live fire, grenades and 84s and everything.
Yep.
That took 3 weeks, and then there's a couple of weeks of like warlike and non-warlike shit. So like everything from getting your boys bullets and fucking water through to he's got you up at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
and he's been arrested. Which the warlike is just
Yeah.
like you know this shit already. Just do
Yeah,
this.
it's
The
that-
non-warlike is like, well, then what? What the
Yeah,
fuck?
it's that
So
fucking,
that was
yeah.
a couple of weeks. Then delivering orders. Then we went out field for 15 days of sleep deprivation. Like it was pretty hard.
Yep.
And even made it worse. Say 9 days in, we had a guy actually die on a motorbike who was a close mate of most of the guys on the course.
Yeah, right.
So I came off Afghanistan and had my leave shortened to do sub 2 for corporal, like a promotional course. I needed to do it,
yeah.
which ended up a blessing. But yeah, it got pretty tough after that. Guys are like,
Yeah, I can imagine.
it puts things in, why the fuck are we out here digging a pit for nothing
Yeah.
when these guys died? But yeah, the guy, yeah, I digress. Beans, fucking, he knew he was getting out. Like his discharge was in.
Yep.
And he did not fucking want to. I'm probably going to get myself in trouble because he might be on some like NDA for this shit. But he didn't want to be there. And then we're like full tack, like every day, you know, sleep debt, tack. You're eating while you're offsiders digging or on the gun or whatever, helmet, body armor, and he just sacked it hard. Like I remember we had these 3 pits, like we had like a depth pit, 2 forward pits. We're all digging, working, whatever. We're at stand 2 in the morning, like fucking stand 2. Boys are on the guns, like night vision on everything, and Beans is in the middle of the position, clean skin, standing there. With just food, just eating it out of his ration pack. Like, what are you doing, boys?
Fuck,
We're
that
like,
would have gone
"Why?
down well.
We're
Yeah.
at stand 2. He's like, I don't give a fuck. We're like, where's your weapon, Beans? He's like, oh, fucking somewhere somewhere in a pit. And we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the penultimate what you don't do.
Yeah, and then like maybe like 5 days later, we're at the culmination, well, the last day of it. So we basically have our like main defensive position and then a standing patrol, a couple of Ks out. And we were on the standing patrol and I was the lead scout at the time. We were going to get bumped off it to come back in to the main position. Anyway, we're at the standing patrol. And we've set up, because we had so much shit we didn't use previously, because it was about this time, all these total fireband days in 2017.
Yep.
So all these like trip flares and smokes and all this shit no one had used through like the whole X. And we're like, fuck this, we're getting hit tonight. We're putting it all out. We spent like 8 hours. Everything was on trip. Like the whole, just for like an acre in front of us. Because we sort of knew, well, they're going to come from this way. Otherwise, the main position will see them and light them up. Anyway, fucking midnight comes over the radio and we're sitting there knowing we're about to get bumped. Yeah, like no duff. Total fireband day as of fucking midnight. Pull in anything on trip that you've got that is against total fireband. And we've got shit.
Yeah, everywhere.
We're like, oh, fuck. Anyway, I still remember one of the boys, the other Willie, who's a really close mate of mine still. He's out there and I'm on this like gun picket and he's out in front of us.
Yep.
And all I hear is this like clink, fuck, of like the trip flare.
Yep.
And then it went off, and like 3 more went off with it
So
because we've got these
it's a
everywhere.
chain reaction.
And then all we could see is all these silhouettes in front of us of like a whole we're a section. So we're
Yeah.
8 dudes on this patrol, and there's a section. Like a company of dudes, like 200, but they were slightly lost. So because they were like the rear details dudes, they didn't have many commanders.
Yeah.
So they were like hunting around, like, where the fuck is this position? So they were hunting around. And as soon as it went off, we just saw like all these silhouettes like turn, like, oh fuck. And then I see these dudes just sprinting back in the position. And like these guys, once it went off, they didn't give a fuck about the other ones. So they went to the furthest one.
Yeah.
So as they're running in, it looks like a scene on Behind Enemy Lines, where he's running through and all the bombs are going off behind it.
Yep.
Just all these trip flares and smokes. Anyway, I'm there. I'm like, fuck, he's coming back in. We've got the whiz bang grenades, like the stick grenades and the smokes. And somehow I've ended up with both of them cracked. And I'm like, fuck. I'm just like, and we're just popping. And the only smoke we had was purple. Like, I don't know, we must have been using red for Kaz and shit throughout. So we had like, I'd say near 100, like purple smoke. Anyway, as the like enemy like turned and moved towards us, they went through all our shit with a slight breeze.
Yeah.
And everything was just, you couldn't see a hand in front of your own face. It's just purple. Anyway, I'm lead scout, so I'm trying to like get out the back position to go back up in the position, out the back of our position to go up. Anyway, I come amongst Beans, the guy on the Bachelorette, sitting on his pack, shirtless, eating. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, Beans? I've got like my night vision on, like pack on, fucking everything. He's like, I give up. I'm just going to get like fucking captured, and then I'll probably go home early if that happens. What the fuck? Like, no, he's like, oh, for fuck's sake. So he's like, pack on.
Yeah.
And we're moving up this position, and I'm lead scouting off my GPS. Well, it ended up with bullshit. So I was like, GPS, compass, map to ground sort of shit. I sort of knew the way.
Yep.
But then what happened was, when you've got guys on standing patrol, you're not meant to move any of the wire obstacles or any mines, because they've gone out through it, know they can come back through it.
Yeah, okay.
They'd moved it all. And I had these grid references of like, hey, this is where the wire obstacles are, and this is whatever. And I'm like, sweet. Next thing, like, Willie, you fucking idiot. What the fuck? And all these guys on SBR just lighten me up. And we're all in this bastard wire. I'm just like, what the fuck? All these dudes on the defensive position just piecing themselves laughing because they've looked on through their Ninox.
Yeah,
and
you
it's
can
just
see.
my whole section in the wire.
Yeah.
And they've moved it all, so we're in it.
Yeah.
And then it was like a 40K, fighting withdrawal. It was fucked. Like it was like, nah, lad. So we did like say 12Ks out for the rest of the night. Got to this position, and it was like, nah, lads, it's going to be like 40 degrees. We're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I know there's meant to be a culminator. Not happening. We're like, fuck yeah, like that's awesome. Next thing, fucking, nah, lads, you're going. And we're like, what? They're like, nah, we're going. And we're like, but you literally, no, that was all bullshit. This is, you'll learn, this is what'll happen to you as a section commander. And we're like, do this whole thing. And it was a long day, but yeah, Beans. And then he just like left the army after that. And then we just saw him
Pop up on the
pop
Bachelor.
up as like kite surfing.
Yeah.
Because on the Bachelor,
Yeah, I saw
he's
that.
a
Yeah, kite surfing instructor.
instructor.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
When I
I'm
saw
like-
your Insta thing, I was like, when you put that up, I was like, surely not another dude.
Bro, he's got good odds on him too.
Oh, the battalions will love that.
Oh,
That'll be
it's-
good morale. That'll be a good boost.
Well, he hasn't sold, like, I don't think he's mentioned his army at all yet.
Yeah,
Or
but I'm
X.
just saying, like,
But-
the guys that know him,
Oh.
and the battalions will love that. It'll be a
It's
good morale
so
booster.
funny.
It'll be funny as bugger. And he's going to cop a lot of shit for it.
But we know already. We've been, so we're at work today.
Yeah.
Because all the senior dudes know him well. Scouring those ads for it.
The digging
and
it,
it's him kissing her under the waterfall.
Oh, God.
And him on like a boat with her. So we're like, well, that means he's gone on like 2 of the solo dates. He's like months in, so he didn't get like he's made rose ceremonies.
You're doing this research.
Yeah, and we're like, bro,
God.
the little boy's like, do you win or what? Like, because we've just bog money. He's like, I can't fucking tell you any of that. We're like, come on, bro, hook a brother up. But he's that's
It's funny
been
where
my morale.
it's funny where people you see get out end up. Like,
Yeah.
it's different, you know. Like, and it's funny you were just talking about, you know, the shit always changes as a secco and things like that. Like that's caught me out a couple of times, you know, like, can you go do this? What is it? Oh, you're just going to jump on this plane, fly up to Townsville, do a refuel because, you know, crew had lost their refuel capability at that point or whatever, for whatever reasons or whatnot. You're just going to do this and then you're going to come home. Oh yeah, no worries, cool, I'll do that. So you just grab your earmuffs, you jump on the back of the plane, you know, 3 days later you come home. You know, you've had to bloody borrow money, like impress off the loadmasters to go buy jocks and socks and a toothbrush, because all of a sudden, you know, a simple 6-hour flight's turned into friggin' 3 days, and you're like, yep, no, not coming home. You know, I'll see you in a couple of days, and you got nothing with you.
Yeah.
You know, so you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake, not again. You know, or same sort of thing. You know, pack a bag for a couple of days, turns into a week. You know, and you couple of days supplies. I used to have 3 bags. I used to have an overnighter, a week bag, and a longer one. And you know, you go to the Mare, you get the bug out bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had 3 different sizes because they came in 3 different sizes. Like the biggest one was, you know, a little bit bigger than an Esh bag. So you could put that on your back and carry, you know, a good week and a half, 2 weeks worth of clothes, a couple of uniforms, a couple of pairs of civvies. So, you know, if you overnighted somewhere, you could at least, you know, step out into town or wherever you were or whatnot. And yeah, the rest of the stuff that you needed. So you'd take enough stuff. Yeah, you got to have an appreciation for you might get retasked at any time, you know. And when after a couple of times you got burnt, you were like, all right, you'd take a 2 or 3 day bag with you wherever you went, you know, just because sometimes you were just going to get that phone call halfway through, or the aircraft captain would come in and be like, so we're not going home tonight, we're going to go here instead, and then we're going to go do this, and then we'll go home.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, you head off, you know, 2 days later, you're like, so we're not going home today, we're going to go. And it's like, all right, cool, maybe I might do the old hotel shower laundromat, you know, tonight, and just get a few clothes washed, or, you know, get a few pairs of jocks done so you can, or socks, so you can just put some clean clothes on again, because after a while you start to stink, you know, covered in bloody grease or dirt or whatever else, working on the aircraft, and then having to bloody, you know, rewear and reuse after a bit. Yeah. So, yeah, it's funny that you don't think about those sorts of things until like someone mentions it. You're like, oh yeah, it happens no matter what service you're in. It's just in a different capacity or at a different, you know, different opportunity. God, I remember when we went field on my recruit training, that was a bit of a laugh, you know, out the back of a Bolivar on base way back when, you know, stand 2 and whatever. And when I sort of hung around at 1RTU for a little bit before I got my employment training course at Wagga, I got to hang around with the Aggies and sort of just was under their control, which was a bit interesting. But got to play enemy a couple of times as well, and it was, you know, sitting there in the old desert camps, because that's what they were using. You know, you get there, you just come off all this training where it was like, you know, weapon drills and whatever else and webbing and whatnot. Then all of a sudden, you still got the weapon drills and all the rest of that, but you got your blanks, but now you're cramming magazines into your pockets and whatever else, what you can carry just to run around and play enemy. So that was quite fun, you know, drop a magazine, have to go back and find it in the middle of the dark and whatever else. But yeah, that stuff was fun. That side of it was pretty good. And then got to Wagga, because I did that, I got to know a few of the instructors. So when I got to Wagga and did my employment training, I knew some of the instructors that were there. So my course got sort of a little bit more leeway than some of the other courses as well. So yeah, it's sort of that little bit of networking sort of paves your way through your career and follows you around.
Fucking oath it does.
And, you know, even when you get out, or, you know, you start to get out and you see certain, you know, people in areas and whatnot, like, you know, doing recruiting, that sort of opened up a lot of different things for me, you know, like different mindset and different opportunities to start to think about maybe, all right, if there is life after defence, what am I going to do? You know, because I think, will I be a lifer? Don't know yet. Don't know at this point in time. You know, it's too early to call, because I don't know what life's going to throw at me for the next couple of years or whatever else. You know, I always said when I joined I'd do 20 years. Well, I'd do 15 and reevaluate. And at my 15, it was a no-brainer to continue on.
Yeah.
At 20, I'll reevaluate, and then, you know, whether I do it every 5 years after that, or I do a 10-year stint or whatever, I don't know. Or I just go, you know what, let's just do this until something comes along. Because I think when you know, and, you know, you listen to sports, you know, sports stars retire and what they say about that, and you listen to other people that you know that have, you know, transitioned out and moved on. I think you know when you know, and there's certain markers, or there's certain things that you can only take so much of. So you get to those points and you just think, all right, cool, maybe the time is right to start looking elsewhere or to start doing that. But yeah, I think having that DFR experience and doing that recruiting and that HR background and then networking through, you know, like the trade schools and stuff like that up in Queensland, that's been eye-opening and you know, sort of that mentorship or that TAFE teaching or things like that are things that I probably never would have thought about. Whereas now it's like, you know, I could probably go do that if I was to, you know, pull the pin or look at getting out or what for whatever reasons, you know, it sort of opens up your options, you know, and just exposes you to a different path that you may never have considered, you know, like you know, like if I didn't do that and I said to you I was going to get out, I probably would have gone to like Qantas or Virgin or somewhere like that, you know, and I've got mates that have done that and, you know, they're loving life, and I've got mates that have gone overseas and done, you know, EASA qualifications and whatnot and, you know, working overseas and things like that. You know, I've got mates that have pulled the pin and gone over and worked for other foreign countries as well, you know, on assets and things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of, you know, one being defence and two, you know, with the backgrounds that we get, I guess there are a lot of options out there available. You just don't really understand when you're in, or I guess contemplate what your skill set does allow you to do outside. You know, like for us, you know, all your courses that you've done infantry land, you know, you talk to someone on the outside or a recruiter, they're just going to look at you and be like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what have you done? You know, like whatever. It's not till you know, transition or discharge or whatnot that they start to give you certificates and things like that. And you sit there and look at it and you go, all right, cool. So I've got certificate this and that, certificate 4 here, 3 here, 2 there, you know, blah, 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 blah. That, you know, you look at it and go, oh, okay. And then, you know, companies like with me, you know, recruitment and mentoring and stuff like that, the veteran guys that actually put themselves in those positions and started bidding for contracts and getting out there and placing veterans into work and things like that. You know, especially our generation, you know, it's like, it's not until you start looking at things like that you actually start to get an appreciation and understanding of, oh shit, you know, there's a reason that, you know, just because you're from a defence background, you may not have the right qualification, you may have part of it or whatever, but when you apply, there's a reason you actually make that interview, you know, because it's not just does that person have that qualification, it's that, you know what, this guy's defence, so he brings, you know, X amount of years of resilience, X amount of years of experience, X amount of years of rocking up on time, 5 minutes before time. Yeah. You know, X amount of years of showing up, X amount of years of this, all that sort of stuff that sort of you sit back and look and go, shit, okay, cool. Maybe that does make me attractive, you know, in an open job market, you know, maybe that does sort of give me a bit of an advantage or a bit of a leg up. And, you know, it's why a lot of defence guys go to the mines and get jobs quite easily, even though they're not qualified. Because
I just had one of my diggers. Yeah. He got one through one of the agencies, 6-figure salary from a digger straight into the mines.
And that's exactly why, you know, it's that regimental lifestyle. It's that, you know, that you come from that environment where you turn up to work, you don't do drugs, you don't do alcohol, you don't do, you know what I mean? Like you turn up to work, you turn up to work, you know, you're not turning up to, hungover or whatever else. You're actually, you know, your purpose is that. So, you know, that's why you see a lot of guys bail into those, even from the technical backgrounds, you know, you see a lot of guys bail because one, skills transition over quite easily. Salary's quite good and all the rest of it. 6 figures or more, but it's that lifestyle you got to adjust to as well. And sometimes that's what people chase for a little while, but then after a while, you know, that lifestyle then presents its own issues or whatever else. So I think you've got to be fluid. You've got to have, I guess, a plan. You know, you've got to have a bit of a plan to what you actually want to try and achieve if you are going to pull the pin or if you are going to transition out. You can't just sort of, you can do it blindly. You can do it, you know, just because you wake up one day and go, fuck this shit, I'm over it, I'm out, you know, take leave, go, whatever. And I've still got my long service sitting there if that ever comes. But someone once told me actually, keep your long service, take it at half pay if you are thinking of another career, because you can work that job while you're on long service at half pay. So it gives you, you know, a good 6 months or longer, depending on how long you've been in for, to actually get a feel and see if that career is what you want to do. And if it is, well then sweet, no worries, you know, follow the rest of the process. If it's not, well, at least you got a job to come back to. You haven't burnt a bridge or, you know.
So that's what worries me about my medical set is...
Yeah, so it's different. It's different for you.
It's just so hard because I don't know where I'll get picked up. And I don't know, I have no idea what medical entitlements I'll get.
Yeah.
And like if you had something as serious as mine accepted, I wouldn't have to worry.
Yeah.
But mine may not get accepted at all.
Yeah. See, that's
And that's where the problem is I'm getting kicked for something may not be accepted. I shouldn't say kicked. I should say transition.
Yeah.
Because they're not kicking me. I could have stayed on, but I got to the point, I knew I was done.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing.
and I think that's a
And
class,
now that I know I've
example.
got this long, I'm performing better than I ever have at work.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I know, like today, we had some stuff, and I was like, no, but I know I've only got however many weeks, and I'll put in 110% because this is it.
Yeah. It's that final run home, isn't it? It's that, sweet, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, or, you can either go down the path of the DCP, the guys that don't get posted because they're going, they just sort of slink away or whatever, or you can give it, it's that final surge or that final hurrah, for yourself to give it that, 110%.
But I'm still don't know where I'm going to end up yet.
Mate, you've got so many options available to you though, if you sat down and thought about it. In terms of like what you're doing here, what you're doing this, what you're doing with veterans, I know you hate to talk about it, but the OAM, things like that, like that's opened up doors for you as well that you don't even know about yet, because you haven't sort of sat back and put it in the perspective of, all right, well, what am I going to do after this? You're still focused on giving that 110% to work, which is, what's getting you through, and it's brilliant. But, I promise you the day you actually, when it's all said and done, it's not going to be the first week or the first month or whatever. It's probably going to take you some time to sort of unhinge yourself, I guess, from that lifestyle and from everything else. And you'll do little things here and there and whatever else that'll give you tasters. But when you actually sit back and look at it and go, right, I've not closed that chapter, because I know you're still going to do some reserve days here and there and stuff like that, but it's going to be very different. But when you sit back and go, all right, I've closed that part, what's next? Those doors will start to open up.
Yeah, I hope they do.
They will. People will reach out. You'll do little things, or you might get someone on this, or you might get someone else, or like you might actually, without even realizing, have a chat with someone and whatever else, and then before you know it, someone's tapping you on the shoulder, and it's like, hey Willie, come do this talk here, or come do this there, or whatever else or whatnot. And I guess having the profile that you're building for yourself, and you're kind of getting, things like public speaking, going to schools, going to, events, doing stuff like that, you probably get into that circuit quite well.
I just hate asking money for it. Like,
yeah, but when you get into that, that's when you start looking at, like an agency or something like that.
Yeah.
You can do it yourself, or you can go get the people that do that stuff for you to manage it and whatever else, and it's probably not a bad thing because it takes stress off you. You don't have to worry about it. And I'm the same, mate. I fucking hate asking people for money, even when, if you offered to pay me for fixing Sierra, I would have laughed at you and probably left, before you even got anywhere near your wallet, and I still won't, even if you gave it to me. Like, I've had mates go, come fix my boat, or come fix this, I'll pay you for it, blah, 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 blah. I've given the money back, because it's like, it's not why I'm doing it, like, if you were, if I was running a business or something like that, no dramas whatsoever. But, the stuff that I do, or I volunteer to do, or things like that, I don't really want any money for it. Like, I'm doing it because I either love doing it, wiring and shit like that, enjoy it because I've done it through work, playing with cars and whatever else. Well, that was my childhood. That was my life, like, I remember as a 13-year-old kid, I'd go after school, walk around to the mechanic's workshop while I was waiting for Dad to come pick us up. And, just hanging out in that workshop, it went from hanging out as an annoying, 13, 14-year-old kid to, all right, twice a week cleaning the workshop, putting tools away, learning what tools were, learning where they, belonged in the guys' toolboxes and stuff like that. Turned into, all right, do an oil change some brakes, to when I got my first car. I got given a car and had to sort of rebuild the motor and a few other things. It was like, all right, cool, we'll teach you how to do this. We'll teach you how to do that. So, that's sort of how I grew up or whatever else like that. So, if I can help people out or whatever else, and get a good laugh out of it at the same time, it's worth doing. So like I said, when you're like, has anyone ever fucking got any issues about this car and the fuel system and whatever else? I don't know what's wrong with it, And I saw poor Lily's face, coming back from Rove, and it's like the tow truck is like, I got to help him out here, like, can't let Maddie do it, sort of thing. So it was like, I'll come around, go buy this, and this. As I said, go get this, we'll get it done, rip the fuel tank out, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah, it might take longer because you're sitting talking shit or having brews or whatever else, but it's just that camaraderie and that mateship and that bit of fun. And when you did an Insta post, I was like, oh, fuck, kind of embarrassed a little bit because it's like, yeah, I'm not out for it for the fame or anything else like that, but I'm quite happy to help and do stuff like that. But yeah, I guarantee you'll get doors open that you probably would never have thought of. You know?
Yeah, hopefully something like, because I know like, even if imagine if it came through that, yeah, Willie, you're getting the full pension.
Yep.
It's not mean like I need work. Like I should, if anyone should be cut back hours, it's probably me currently with what I've gone through, what treatment, whatever, and the fatigues I still get, all that shit. But like I work full time. I try and I was podcasting a lot back in the day. Like, you know, I'm still like, we're 2 hours into this.
Fuck, is that shit? Yeah, right. Wow.
Like I need something to fill the time.
Yeah.
And to be meaningful and actually put something in. But I just don't know
it's that sense of
if I can
purpose,
work
isn't it?
for people. Like,
yeah, it's that sense of purpose, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that drive to be able to get up and what am I going to do today or what am I going to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
You know, it's that, you know, it's not having that brotherhood. It's not having that get up, shave, throw the uniform on, go to work. It's that sort of stuff. So you got to find, you're right. You got to find what you're going to replace it with. But it's also one of those things that takes a little bit of time to work out what you want to do as well.
yeah.
And I've thought about pulling the pin multiple times over, you know. Mate, I've actually thought about pulling the pin, selling everything, moving to Canada, you know. And at one point I even researched.
I'm in.
Well, mate, at one point I'd even researched how to actually transfer over to the Canadian Air Force.
Yeah, right.
Because it's doable.
So
you know.
yeah, it's definitely
definitely
Lat
doable. You know?
transfers.
Yeah.
Commonwealth.
So, yeah, at one point I was looking at that. So, yeah, it's something I've put a fair bit of effort into without actually realising it. And it wasn't until a conversation with a couple of people and a psychologist that actually came back, and I sort of like sat there and thought, fuck, I've actually had a fair few plans over the years that I've never really acted on. One, probably because it was not right or timing wasn't right, or, you know, it was just a escape route.
Yeah.
In that sense. But yeah, there's always opportunities out there. And sometimes it may take, you know, 2 or 3 different things before you actually find your niche, you know, or before you find where you want to let yourself click again.
Yeah.
But no, I guarantee that little blue tick and that IM, you know, if you really wanted it to, you could let that take you places. But again, you know, it's that niche field that, you know, it's not always cut out, you know, what it's meant to be. But for, you know, 2 to 3 months or something like that, it'll give you that taster. It'll give you that, yeah, you know what, I can do this, I can do that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. Like yeah, I'd like to do more of my like YouTube media stuff. Like, and there's a lot of money in it, and travel and everything.
Well, we'll get that Sierra running for you, mate. So I can send you on your way. So I'm not getting a phone call at fucking border town going, shit, come and get me for fuck's sake.
Come and give me a tow with the cruiser.
Oh, like I'd happily come give you a tow of the cruiser. 1, just for laughs, and 2, just for shits and giggles. You know, like it's funny. You know, like I've got all that long service sitting there. It's like if it wasn't COVID or whatever else, I probably would have fucking taken it and gone up the Kimberleys or somewhere like that, or gone and just got away. You know, but 2020, right? The year of COVID, the year of everything. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's amazing.
it's challenge. 2020 is a year of challenges, I reckon.
It is.
It's a year of internal reflection, the year of challenges, and the year of working shit out and just being like, what the actual fuck?
I think in many ways it's always good for some people though to reground and rethink about shit. Like I've said,
100%, yeah.
I hope that people after this go, holy fuck, I should book that holiday. I should book that flight. I should go. I want to see the Eiffel Tower, like, because it's the first time, and it's funny with military people. The government has taken freedoms off military people all the time.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Like, lads, you can't go away this weekend.
That meme, that very first meme that came out when COVID hit, and I think it was, what's the name? I can't even think of his fucking
Kermit
face
the
now.
Frog.
Well, not even Kermit the
Isn't
Frog.
it?
There was that.
He's on the noose. He's like,
yeah,
first time.
He's on the noose. Yeah. Oh, that James Franco.
James Franco.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, government's taken away, you know, civil liberties or freedoms or holidays or whatever else, and he's smiling on the noose, and it's like, first time, you know, military people, first time, like, you're right.
That's what I hope, man. Is like it makes me think, fuck, this can happen again. Like it could easily have another virus, same virus, whatever.
Well, yeah.
When it opens, that people think actually, this is finite. It's been a long time. I need to I'm not happy, or I want to do that, or whatever. Because I know it did that a bit for me with getting diagnosed.
Yeah,
Because it was like, hang on, no, I want to do this. And it's moved away from. It wasn't that I wanted to be, I guess, go and travel and shit because I'd done that. I wanted to have a purpose and be somewhat successful, and I think that will be my biggest thing I continue on is like, and a lot of people like just relax and fucking enjoy it. I'm like, yeah, but I enjoy that grind. That's what I want to do. Like I want to be up to the point where I'm actually successful in this, but it's like, it'll never happen either.
Oh, mate, don't sell yourself short. It's also the way that it's the way that a lot of defence members are brought up or trained, or, it's the way you come through. It's that grind, it's that drive, it's that you have to achieve that mission sort of thing, and for yourself, it's like relating, all right, I want to be successful. I'm going to get there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you've got a bit more tenacity than, average Joe Blow off the streets, but you'll get there. You definitely will get there.
It'll be interesting. Like I know it'll be a fucking ride anyway.
Look, anything's going to be a ride. Anything you can throw yourself at. I mean, given what you know about your situation and yourself and stuff like that, and the way you approach things, everything's going to be a ride.
It'll be fucking funny. Like I can't wait to actually, because this year's sort of been shit for socials.
I can't wait till you lose another drone. I can't wait to fly. I can't wait for stories. It's just and that's the best thing about it. It's that stories, and it's that that shit that you will get up to, given the fact that you're fucking going to be ex-military. And we will always put ourselves in the fucking places we shouldn't. Always.
Yeah, man. I remember this time. I won't tell my side of this when I was in France, because my side's probably worse. But the guy I was with in France at the time, another mill bloke, he's out now. He's been out for years. I was left with someone at this pub. We were actually staying near the Moulin Rouge, and we're in the pub next to it.
Yeah.
Or the bar. Anyway, he went home with this girl, and he said he was walking down some just like French back street in Paris, and got tackled by this fucking cop, like full kitted, like GIGN fucking mask M4, like battle rattle cop. And he's like, what the fuck? And this guy's like, shut the fuck up. We're doing a fucking raid. Like, and he's like, what? And it was when France, like 2017, the early 17 in France was pretty bad. They had a lot of the shootings, and it was a bit of civil unrest.
Yeah.
And they were doing some like full fucking Tag East raid shit.
Oh, Jesus.
Anyway, he's like, and they're like speaking in French. Griffith's like, what the fuck? And he's with this chick. He reckons he's in beside this like staircase, and these cops like full gunned up, night vision, everything. He's like, what the fuck? And he's like, and then we're waiting there fucking ever. And he's like, the man, this chick, we're just getting it on. And he said, I don't speak any French, but I assume when he turned around and looked at me, he went, dirty prick. That's the most fucking mill story ever. That's wicked.
Yeah.
He was a weapon, that bloke. He was the funniest dude. I introduced him to my brother. And we're out in town, we all got split up.
Yep.
And my brother, who's an engineer, pretty straight down the line, was like, who the fuck is this? He's like, I lost him. And then I just look on the dance floor of his club, and I just see him there by himself, just tipping beer. And he's like, what the fuck? Mill dudes, I don't know what it is. There's something else.
Yeah, it's that. I guess it's that bond you form, through your career, and when you go through with guys consistently and whatever else, like, mate, IETs, we got up to some shit, like. Couple of things made the paper, but there was never any association or whatever like that. I'm not even going to divulge them, but a few things made the paper and stuff like that, and it was just it was always a hoot. It was always a blast.
And I think it's the ability that you trust yourself physically and shit to be able to get out of a situation. So like you'll be like, I'll put myself in that because I reckon I'll be able to like get myself out of this.
Even if it's not you, it's the guy next to you.
Yeah. Did you hear the one about me getting on that super yacht in Greece when I was crawling across that rope? And then that same night is when I climbed across that cliff top.
Yeah.
And I didn't, and I'm like, mate, fuck.
So I didn't do Europe. I haven't travelled Europe or anything like that. I've travelled a fair bit for work, but not Europe or anything like that for holidays or stuff like that. And my brother, I got two younger brothers. My youngest brother became a paramedic. It was the first first of the mum's 3 boys to go to uni and get a degree, and she was extremely happy about that, and rubbed it in my face a little bit, which is quite funny. But when he graduated, he there was no jobs in Australia, so he went to London. So he was a paramedic in London for over 5 years, and he was at one of the points, he was one of the first respondents to the bridge attack a couple of years ago, sort of thing. But because I remember he sent me I think, where was I? What year was that? Oh shit. No, I'd just come back. I'd only just got back. I was in Brizzy, and he'd gone to London. So I just left last rotation, come home, posted up to Brizzy. He was in London, and he'd rocked up on the job, gone through all the induction briefing, whatever else, and sent me a photo. And I'm like, what is that? And I've looked closer at the photo and just gone, oh, fuck, it's a stab vest and ballistic wear. And that's what they're issued, sort of thing, as paramedics in London. I was just like, shit, and I'm looking at it, and you got the handle for the quick release and all the rest of it. I'm like, I know how to put that together. Blah, 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 blah. As a RAF, it's like you get taught it, but you don't really use it until you go, over the wire and whatever else. But it was just a bit of eye-opening, whatever. So he was in Europe for 5 years, and I probably had all sorts of chances to go travel and visit him or whatever, but just work got in the way and life got in the way that I didn't really take him up on it. But I remember him ringing me. He went to Croatia with his paramedic mates. Now, it's not just paramedics overseas, it's also paramedics in Australia, but they cannulate themselves before they go out. So when they come home, they can put themselves on a bag to rehydrate and do it all again.
Been there.
Yeah. So, it's listening to my brother tell me all that sort of shit. And I was like, fuck that. But they did a Sal Croatia,
Yeah.
And he rang me one night, and I must have been his last person to call. And he'd never ring mum, but he rang me. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning or something. I answered the phone. I was like, what the fuck are you doing calling me? And he was munted. Like, it's the best way to describe it. Yeah. He's like, I don't know where I am. I'm like, how the fuck would I know where you are? I was like, where were you? He's like, we were somewhere. And I jumped in this cab with this chick to go up to bloody some nightclub somewhere and whatever else. And in the background, all you can hear is thumping bass. And I'm like, well, you can't be far from it because I can hear the fucking music, like, oh shit, all right. And then half hour later, I get another phone call. I'm like, where are you? He's like, I don't know, but I've got to be here tomorrow. I'm like, well, fuck, how about you catch a cab back to where you come from? I don't know where this guy's taking me. I'm like, oh God, whatever. And an hour later, I'm thinking, what's the worst that can happen to him, And then an hour later, I get this phone call, and he's like, I think I'm back to the boat. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I think I'm back where the boat is. Hang on a second. And I just hear this like clank, clank on the phone, and then I just hear this splash. I'm like, what the fuck? And all I hear is him talking through the phone while he's trying to swim out to the boat. And I'm like, oh my God, you're blind, rotten drunk trying to swim. And I'm thinking, you know what? I've done way worse than this when I think back and, some of the things I've done and whatever else. It's like... yeah, well, sent him a message the next day. How'd you pull up? He's like, great, got on a bag as soon as I got on the boat with the boys, and I was fine the next day. I'm just like, wish we could have done that when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this little tip, 100% oxygen definitely works.
Really?
Yeah, it definitely works. Definitely works.
Fuck, man, I remember when I was in the gang, because I was there for 9 months, the fucking, every 2 weeks, actually no, it wouldn't have been, it was 16 days out, so... And then day in and out. So say every 18 days.
Yep.
A new group of lads went on Rockall.
Yes.
On Rock for Rockall.
Yeah.
And we...
Flights to Australia or flights to Europe?
We just lived for it. Every 2 weeks we lived for the lads on Snap. And I remember when I was trapped, because I was the first one out. So I was
really?
2.5 months worth of... Because it was still winter when I was there. And it was like, we can't have our lead crew command or I guess... vehicle commander, not in the fighting season. Yeah. You need to go first. I'm like, fuck. Anyway,
excuse me.
I ended up having rank following me on Snapchat, and I got there and I'm like, I'm going to be in some shit here. Fuck. And then I remember this one guy pretty high up comes up to me. He's like, Willie, I fucking lived through your Snapchat story. It was the best fucking thing. The boys were showing me, and then I couldn't help myself, so I added you, and I'm like, I had no idea. What the fuck?
Isn't it so true though? You live vicariously through those moments, it's that. Yeah, it's that. Your turn's coming, but for us, we never. We did 4 months or 3 months to start with, and then 4 months. So, you never got Rockfar or anything like that. And you'd see the guys that go do it, and you'd see people in the sort of, musterings in the Air Force that would get it and whatever. And it was, as I said, flight to Europe or back to Australia sort of thing, So you were mad. We used to sit there and think, you're mad if you're freaking going to go home.
I know. You lose a day too.
Oh, exactly, yeah. You lost the day with travel. But, I mean, if you had wife and kids, I understood. If you just had a missus, the smart money was fly her to Europe for 2 weeks, because what chick's going to say no to 2 weeks in Europe, and it's only costing you an airfare, yours is paid for. So that was the smart money. And a few guys did that, I know a few of my mates that did that. But, you knew when guys were going on Rockfar. And you knew when guys had got back in the country off Rockfar, because they were, champing at the bit to get on that Herc to get out of there. Yeah. And then when you were going back in a couple of weeks later, they were dejected, sitting. Well, not so much dejected, but it was that come down.
Oh, bro, I remember sitting in the Paris airport about to go back in, and I was going back in for 6 months.
Yep.
And talking legitimately, it might have been 6.5, to my mate, being like, we could easily go AWOL. I was like, bro, there is no way in the world. And I'm sitting there, I was dead serious. I reckon if he was like, we're on, I would be on.
Yeah.
I was like, mate, as if they're going to find us. That will be fine. And I went back, and it was like, yeah, of course, but fuck. It wasn't that coming back in that first week was just like.
Yeah, it's that adjustment period back to the grind.
Well, you're doing the adjust, because I adjusted in. Did two, and then went straight back out.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Fuck, I've got to do this all over again."
Yeah.
But that was wicked. I'll never forget when I was first night in Greece, because we're on this Kentucky, and it was like, okay, you're going to the islands tomorrow, 6 a.m. Don't bother going out tonight. Just save it for the islands. It's not going to be worth it. And he goes, if you do go for a drink, he's like, Athens, it's not what it used to be. It's a bit rougher now. Just whatever you do, don't go to this suburb, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, thanks, mate. Anyway, he leaves.
That is like a red flag to a bull to anyone
was
in military,
23 people, 3 dudes. Me, one of the boys, and one of the other lads.
Yeah.
And 20 girls.
Yeah.
And it was like...
But even that,
he left, and I'm like, we are fucking going there.
Yeah, that's exactly... It's a red flag to a bull, isn't it? It's literally okay, where did you not tell me to go? Write that down, write that down, write that down.
Yeah,
I am there.
It was one of the best nights I've ever had. And it didn't feel any more. It felt safer than Hindley Street. But
it's funny that, It's funny how when you go to different countries and different places and you end up, where probably you're told not to be, and you literally feel safer than you would if you were back home.
Athens is rough in some places. We ended up, and I was like, holy shit. But by far, one of the more dangerous. Honestly, I felt more uncomfortable in the States before than in any place in Europe.
Yeah, I missed out on America for work. I was always in the Middle East when those sort of trips came up. Which was
man.
Quite, I mean, it was a catch-22. You were either in the States or you're in the Middle East, and it was at the time it was I'm in the Middle East, so I'm not worried about it. But even the Middle East, we because you're Turks, you can sort of send some stuff home. When things go home and whatever, plane goes home or stuff like that. When you do those tail swaps and whatever else, and I remember a time where myself and one of the other guys grabbed a vehicle and off for a cruise, looking for a wrecker so he could send home a couple of motors for the 500 sprint cars, because they're just R6 motors.
Yeah.
And that turned into shit, where are we? To fuck, we're lost. To no, we are. To, well, this is where it says we're in the middle of nowhere. To finding this bloody, what was a wrecker at the time, which turned into being a performance workshop, which turned into literally a couple of hours of just sitting there looking at some of these. You see the 4-wheel drives built for the sand drags and stuff like that, and the bikes, the Hayabusa with the bloody extended swing arm and all the neons and the turbos and whatever else. It just turned into, you rocked up there and you open your mouth, and Australian, usually the first thing you got back was Ricky Ponting or something like that for cricket. Yeah, cricket, no worries. And it just turned into Aussie, and away you went. And it was just a laugh, and it was because I love cars, growing up and whatever performance vehicles. I'm sort of going, oh yeah, that's this, that's that, and the guy just looks at me and he's like, what? And I'm like, what size turbo? 42, 42X, whatever. Garrett, yeah, sweet, manual auto, blah blah blah. Turned into, do you want to actually go for a drive in some of these cars? And it's like, I'm not saying no. Yeah, I am not saying no. So, and you record it and you put that in the book for later on or whatever else. Like, it's not every day you're in a Maserati on the highway, 200k an hour plus whatever and whatnot. But yeah, those sorts of experiences. And then I guess the markets, where you used to jump into this building, climb up a ladder, into another building, into another building, into another building, because the dude's trying to sell you belts, shoes and whatever else, the perfumes. And then you walk out the street, where you started. And you're just like, oh, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Back to where we go. But no, it's funny what a career in defence sort of teaches you and leaves you with.
Yeah.
And then it's also interesting the doors that it opens up, and especially in this day and age, there's a lot more focus on life after defence, and you can sort of transition knowing that, your skill set can be actually put to good use. It's just what field and where you want to end up, what you choose to follow, that's going to be the kicker.
Yeah. Well, I reckon, what's that, 2 hours?
Mate, it doesn't even
19.
feel like that.
I know.
Eh? It's going to be funny how you edit this.
Oh, I'm not editing it.
Yes, brilliant.
I'm
better.
I'm fucking, everyone who knows this is fucking lazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I feel like, the problem is editing podcasts. One, I feel can somewhat censor what people
correct.
say. Because I wasn't happy with some censorship I'd had before on a podcast.
Yeah.
Hence, I've got my show. And then, secondly, if it's like say 2 hours 20 minutes, editing that at least 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I make no money off this. It's like that's 4 hours of free work.
It is.
Like,
You're right. That's the attitude. Yeah, and that attitude is going to get you places because you know what is going to, you know what you can do, what you won't do, what you'll settle for, what you won't settle for. So that's why I say you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, Ewan, thanks again. It's a pleasure.
Broken in
Went quick.
New studio.
We're broken in the new studio. Fucking
broken in the new studio. You missed your calling. You could have been a good ASOP operator.
Could have been
mate.
that man.
Well, that Mo, look at it. You could be brothers.
What a fucking weapon.
Well, it is.
I want to reach out to the actor on socials and be like, wait, just so you know, you're on my fucking podcast. You'd be like, take that down. Dude.
Just get Lily to take a picture of you next to it and then send it to him.
Have you seen the one of me in Afghan with exactly that? There's a photo of me, and I put this up on my socials when I was in the Middle East. 2017.
Yeah.
It's me sitting outside with just like this in my combat cams, in the middle of middle of Afghan. And it was like the boss hit me up about my hair, and I told him it was in the danger zone. And it's just like whatever. I'm just like, fuck.
Oh shit.
Well,
isn't that funny?
Yeah.
All right, mate.
Right,
It's been a
let's do
pleasure.
it.
Thank you.
Always. No, thank you.
No, that's all right.
And that'll do us.
Yeah, done.
Fucking boy.
I didn't really